Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Classic Plus Show. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Jody JD, an amazing content creator. He writes for Wowhead, and he is also a school teacher for our rather uneducated children who are quite literally not learning in schools nowadays. By no fault of Jody or the teachers of the school, they're just not funded. Hence why he's a content creator.
What
Damn,
an
all right, good
introduction.
intro.
And
I
we
know.
also we also have my great co-host Aaron Amir, another amazing content creator, a big Classic Plus shill like myself. And today's episode is very special. It is a very long deep dive into horizontal versus vertical progression, the big what if, the big issue of Classic WoW, the big gotcha question that nobody has an answer to because it's a nonsensical question, but we're going to discuss it regardless. So we're going to dive into the very, very first question, which is quite literally, what exactly is vertical versus horizontal progression? So, Jody, as the guest, I'm just going to let you start off here.
Well, it's so funny we're doing this video because I literally wrote an article for Wowhead that's not out yet. Well, maybe it'll be out when this video's out about horizontal and vertical progression. So, vertical progression is kind of what we know like now in WoW, where one season's done, you get all your gear, either you did your mythic rating or you got your highest level gear from that season. Next season comes out and none of the gear matters. You'll do a campaign for the main story and you might update all your gear just from the campaign gear. That's how big the item level jump is. Or you'll get it from like low level mythic keys, mythic plus keys, I'm sorry, or delves, or just anything like that. And just it's just where you don't need to do previous phases or seasons of the expansion to get caught up in the gameplay sense of of the current expansion you're on. Whereas horizontal progression is kind of what we see in classic. Whereas, I'm a warrior in anniversary right now, and my best helmet is Lionheart helm, which you can get at the start of the game. And it's the best going in an Axaramus. So it's something you can still make that was 4 phases ago that you still wear now. Or how in Axaramus you finally replace your Onslaught Girdle or your Quick Strike Ring. And even if you don't replace it, it's still pretty strong and something you'll wear to the end of the game should you not get those upgrades. So in horizontal progression, you still go back to previous raids that are existent in that expansion to get gear that matters. Old content still matters throughout that version of the game.
Very well put. Aaron, do you agree or disagree with his description here?
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty accurate, right? Where like the idea is that horizontal is, you can get a set of gear, you can quit the game for a year, you can come back and you're good. You can just hop right back into it. Everything's groovy. And vertical progression, you get to a point where old stuff doesn't matter, whether that's a season or your raid tier goes so high that it's invalidating the original gear you had. But I guess TLDR would be like horizontal, come back anytime when you're good. Vertical, you come back and you need to get new stuff.
Pretty much on point. There's not much really to add there. So the point here becomes when people say this, if you look at any YouTube forum, any content creator, any Discord, Twitter, whatever, it's always the buzzword, the game needs horizontal or vertical, it needs to be like this or that. What do you guys think that the community actually thinks horizontal progression is? Because even classic WoW, as horizontal progression as the game is, it's also really not, just based on exactly how the game itself works, right? In the context of classic WoW, it's horizontal only because the game has a finality. It's not a forever going game. The game was designed to have more and more phases, and that would have killed the horizontal progression of it, because at a certain point, the gear just becomes like forever going. So when the community themselves are like, saying the buzzword over and over again, do you think they truly understand what that really means? Or do you think they're just parroting what they hear online from other people without really understanding the scope of vertical versus horizontal?
So yeah, I think there's it's a mixture of both what you're saying there. 'Cause it's easy to want more horizontal progression, but then you have to kind of expand your mindset on what classic is. Because horizontal progression isn't just release more raids or release raids with other raids. It's a mindset of you have to slow everything down because we don't want the power creep to be like it was in SOD. Because in SOD, every raid replaced old gear, and sometimes you went back for good pieces. But the way SOD was designed was that okay, tier 1 molten core, good. Tier 2, I'm upgrading. All right, I'm upgrading an AQ, kind of, and then I'm upgrading in Nax, and I'm upgrading in Scarlet Enclave, and I can either some pieces that matter, but not nearly as much as it was in Classic. And then the power creep, where we were kind of doing Wrath of the Lich King numbers in Classic, is also not something people want to see. But it's more than just expanding, the instance content. It's also expanding the open world as well. There's so much you have to add that does not exist in WoW that players might think is bad until they actually get it. Like cosmetic awards and solo content, which makes people scream retail, right? That's just retail. That's just retail. And to a certain extent, it is. It is retail if you just give everything away. Like if you just make everything super easy to get through a cosmetic award, or it's just, just do a quick achievement and that's it, then you have just the retail system in Classic, and people aren't really a fan of that. That's why I don't really like retail too, because there's stuff you can do. You can do stuff in the game, but like it's like it doesn't matter. Like I can go get these achievements, these cosmetics, but it doesn't matter to me. Like I walked in somewhere, killed a mob that dropped it, and then took it home. Now it's in my what's it called? The little toy box, right?
collection tab.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, collection tab, yeah. But if these like cosmetics or these awards come from like a series of challenges, I guess, content, it makes it more interesting to get. And like Willie mentioned in this video, it's stuff you can flex when you're in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, right? I think it's a big thing is getting these things that showed off something you did that's challenging in the game, which is different from retail where most cosmetics are just an achievement you did that was super easy. Minus like, showing off mythic raid gear that most people transmog off anyways. So like one example I wrote in my article, if I can find it, was something like for professions. So there's two things I wrote for professions here. And one is like alchemy. So let's say there's this cool cosmetic alchemy belt you can get that shows off potions and elixir. You could see like what'd you call it, Aaron, earlier? The
Like a
belt, like the
girdle.
little a girdle, yeah, that has like you could physically see little potions on you. And maybe they look like potions we know in game, like it looks like elixir mongoose on you, or it looks like you have stuff in there. And it's purely cosmetic, but it's really hard to get. And it's not just, oh, he drops from this one boss, or you do a little achievement, or you maxed out alchemy. It's after you maxed out alchemy, a quest chain opens up. And through that quest chain, maybe you have to go somewhere that's like I think, side note, we need more Jinta allures in the game, like open world dungeons, like the one in Hinterlands, where maybe you have to go through here with other friends or by yourself and kill something that's really hard to kill. Something that takes attempts to kill where you might die. You might like, okay, that didn't work. How do I do this again? Maybe I need to do this, whatever, yada yada yada. Maybe it involves using your potions, right? But it can't be easy. It can't be just a quick I did it and got it done. And it takes a while. But when you do it, you get to show off that you did it. And you have this cool cosmetic on you that shows you are a really accomplished alchemist. And that's just one thing they can add for like those professions. And another thing I had was for like mining. Let's say there is an ore from a new zone that requires 325 mining. Well, we all know professions max out at 300. We can get +5 mining in Chandra Gloves, but what if there's a +20 pickaxe you can get, or +20 mining pickaxe you can get? Same situation where you have to go do some series of quests that isn't just, complete this, complete this, complete this, complete this, then you're done. It's like, okay, you have to go to this place, kill something that's really hard to kill. Maybe you have to go back to an old raid, right? Maybe this takes you, maybe we're like, let's say Scarlet Enclave Sod, right? Maybe we're 3 raids past that now. Well, you have to go to Molten Core with a group of people, get this fragment of Ragnaros. You get a hardened scale of Nefarian, And this is important because it's on the last boss of each raid. So you can't just make a raid team to do this and then just dip out when you get it real quick. You have to complete the entire raid. So you, as the longtime player, are doing content that's older, but it's relevant. And then newer players who need gear from maybe Nefarian or like Molten Core can now do those raids still, even though they're much older. And then once you complete that, there has to be some sort of solo content. And this might anger some people, but maybe like a delve. And you go into a delve that requires you to mine something or it has a crafting material. But this delve could have maybe like a mage tower like challenge in it, where it's not something you just walk in and kill. It's something that will kill you a lot. And it requires you to learn by trial and error. There's something like that in the War Within. There's a delve, I think, in Tazavesh. It's not a delve, but it's like a one. You enter and there's a boss. There's an easy mode and a hard mode, and there's like a death counter for it. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
I'm
I forgot what it's called.
I think so. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of delves in retail. It is a form of horizontal progression. It just wasn't like what I would consider an ideal form of horizontal progression for somebody like myself. But I know what you're talking about.
So there's that, but there has to be something that requires the player to challenge themselves, and it's going to be not I walk in, kill it, get it. It's like this is going to kill me a lot. I have to figure out how to beat this boss, like through actual like progression strategy, like an Elden Ring style challenge, but in WoW. And then once you get that, now you have this plus 20 pickaxe that can mine this ore that, and this is another topic too, either is soulbound or tradable, depends on how Blizzard works the game. Because like Aaron pointed out when we were talking earlier, if it's tradable, then you can just sell it. But if it's soulbound, then it's a personal thing for you. And then you get to make this piece of gear that's really powerful. The only caveat, though, and I'm arguing with myself here now, is that if that becomes BIS for like DPS warriors, DPS paladins, that's going to be unattractive because now everybody has to do blacksmithing. Everybody has to do this because it's their best. They're going to want to. Versus it's just a fun thing to do that has an option. Because if it's not in everyone's interest and they feel left out, then you're going to have Torghast, which was like, out of all the recent solo content we got, being Brawlers Guild, Mr. Pandaria, this is not recent, that's old now, right? Mage Tower, Torghast, Delves. Torghast is the one everyone hates because it was mandatory. You needed to do Torghast to upgrade to Legendary. Nobody wanted to do it. That's why we called it Torghast. So, as I'm ranting here, I just think solo content in some shape that's challenging, like genuinely challenging, that offers really cool rewards that are unique, that takes time to be earned, is a good way of horizontal progression without making it just all about gear. It can have gear in it, and I think more options for gear is good. But I think offering a lot of really cool cosmetics, like how Sod had the item glows for your weapons if you did it on hard modes, even though the hard modes weren't that hard. It's just stuff like that that makes it more interesting. You can't make it too easy though, because if everyone gets it, then it's not. Who cares, right? Like if I'm not, it sounds like I'm gatekeeping, but like if this is a forever game mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be able to do it eventually. There's no FOMO here. It's not time gated. You can do this eventually, which is why I think it needs to be hard.
So,
which might be push and pull.
Go ahead, Aaron. You seems like you want to say something.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that's like a lot of the prestige of old school MMORPGs, right? Is like seeing and identifying an item and understanding and recognizing like the amount of time and effort it takes to get that thing, right? And sorry, I was going to go on a bit of a rant unless you you
go
want to dive
right
in.
ahead. No, you're
Cool.
good.
Yeah. So I think with horizontal progression, I feel like people they take what's currently on the market and they're trying to like retrofit that to World of Warcraft and see how it'll fit, right? So I think the obvious example, and I think people are going to roll their eyes when I say it, is RuneScape, right? It's like the example that everyone uses is like, this is the horizontal MMO. Guild Wars too, but I mean, OSRS just has a bigger fan base. And so like that game is just like fundamentally different in all aspects compared to World of Warcraft. And when it comes to like solo content, I really like the idea that Jody's talking about, where it's like this crafting thing, right? Because it's adding more to professions and kind of like incentivizing you to go out and do these things aside from just like raid logging for the sake of like getting gear. Um, and on top of that, I was just thinking as he was talking, like a really cool idea would be like almost like what if, you know, that kind of like top tier end game profession thing is like it's like maybe not just a pickaxe, but like an entire outfit. And you have to work with other people in other professions to make the different pieces, right? So maybe it's like a leather worker makes the pants and a tailor makes the tunic and a blacksmith makes the gloves or the belt, and you have to work with all these different professions, and it gives a reason for different people to specialize in different professions to work together to create and do these things. Like, oh, I need to work with a blacksmith because I need to get the a belt buckle. So say like with your alchemy example, the alchemist crafts the belt, right? But they need to get the belt buckle from a blacksmith, and they need to get the leather strap from
like that a lot.
a leather
Cool.
worker, right? And then so
Yeah.
maybe it's like so all of these classes have meaning apart from like just creating that item for themselves, right? So it's like this kind of ecosystem where all these professions are working together, and you need a blacksmith, you need to know these people, and it kind of adds this social element while also being kind of this solo challenge where everyone's having these solo challenges, but they all kind of like join together in helping each other, right? So then it gives your profession more value in terms of like making money, and it gives you more sense of community working with these other people, right? So like, the enchanter in your guild has more meaning, the blacksmith in your guild has more meaning,
Hmm.
and these professions that aren't necessarily BIS end up becoming, more viable at the
Yeah.
end game because they have more function in helping kind of the bigger picture. So yeah, I was thinking that I thought that'd be really cool, like some kind of
I,
concept of like working together.
I like that too because I think that works a lot better with classics professions versus like retails. I think I hate all the extra shit you have, like extra put points into this, into this. And I just want like I'm a blacksmith. Maybe I'm like an armor smith or a weaponsmith, right? That's it. Because
Mhm.
that works more well with what you're doing versus like having to pick in this tiny little specializations of each thing. You know, what I'm talking about how retail has that.
Oh, the
So I think that
professions have
works.
just they're
Yeah,
out to lunch now, dude.
yeah. I think that is a really cool concept too.
Mhm.
So, in my opinion, about the profession things is like, I'm not the biggest fan. I gotta give the caveat here. I think professions are good and they're healthy for the game. But I feel like in a game like World of Warcraft, and Classic WoW in particular, every facet you add to the game where it gives you an ability to do something better or more efficiently than somebody else becomes mandatory due to the culture of the game and the community in the modern day and age. So, like you guys saying, if you go farm this and do this, you get this pickaxe, which lets maybe if it's just cosmetic and only cosmetic, almost
Mhm.
nobody will give a shit at the end of the day, right? For example, in old school RuneScape, the fire cape or the quest cape. Is it drastically better than every other item in the game? No, but it is a pinnacle of endgame. So there are
Mhm.
benefits to having it. So if you have to go through this insane grind, like hypothetically just call it the molten pickaxe, right? Not the best name, but in this context, the molten
Yeah.
pickaxe. You go on farm it, you grind it. And let's say the benefits are you have an extra 25% chance to get an arcane crystal. That modifies the economy. It's a very valid item, and it improves the
Mhm.
quality and scale of your game, your farming, your gold efficiency, or whatever. But if it has no benefit at all, you just when you're out there mining in the world, you have this really amazing pickaxe, and they put a lot of effort and energy into this quest line and think to it. Who does this really benefit, and how is this really something that's going to make the community at large more happy and excited about it? Now,
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea. I'm not against it overall, but I think in terms of like both the journey and the end game of horizontal or vertical progression, I feel like it's almost redundant in regards to
Mhm.
what the community themselves would actually care
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Well,
Well, yeah.
yeah, I think of like Endgame where like everyone's an engineer for
Yeah,
sappers,
exactly.
Mhm.
Yep.
right? So like how do we kind of mitigate this meta of like, well, everyone has one profession locked up because it's gonna
Yeah.
grant this really good item in game, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
that's kind of like not worst case scenario, but that's kind of like not what you want to build for longevity, right? So it's
Mm.
like, how do you take kind of something like that, which is a player created, meta, and kind of like mitigate that so it's like, not so
Thought
much of a. Oh yeah, sorry, Jared, you go.
Thought kind of did that with the professions. Like I think alchemy gave you a world buff for your party, a raid buff. That was only alchemy could give you that buff. And then eventually they made better sappers with the fumigators that did not require engineering to use, but only engineers could make them. And then they also had like the nitro boosts that are put in Scarlet Enclave, but that was on your belt. But you can buy a consumable version. I can't say the consumable version. There we go. My stutter kicking my ass there. That you could other people could use, but engineers could make. So there, like kind of like what I said, like and what you're saying too is like I said, the pickaxe might not just be cosmetic. It maybe you use it to mine these materials that only you can get to make pieces for blacksmiths only that deviate away from engineering. But you can't make it too powerful to where everyone has to be a blacksmith now, because then we're having the same issues, just now with engineering.
So, like a counterpoint to this, like another like counterpoint, because I want to actually live a debate to this rather than just being, oh, I like
Yeah,
it, great
sure, yeah.
idea.
Sick
No,
idea,
it's
guys.
good.
Love
It's
it.
I could realize I'm stupid if I yeah.
So a counterpoint. Say they make every single profession equally powerful, equally beneficial. So you're effectively picking, if you play a mage, you need alchemy, enchanting, and you play a warrior, you need blacksmithing, and mining, depending on what kind of war. If you're a tank, you need, this and that, or if you're a DPS, you need engineering and blacksmithing, or whatever combination. Do you think that's actually healthy in the long term, where everything is so powerful that everything has major benefits? Or do you think part of what classic style charm is, certain things are just outright better because it's broken and wonky, and that's part of that so-called classic charm? And do you believe that is actually something that should be kept in the game for Classic Plus in this context, where certain things are just outright better for certain classes, and they should leave it like that instead of trying to make everything completely and utterly balanced from the get-go?
I think the more changes, the better. I think it's okay to deviate away from what we know. Before we get on that topic, though, it could be a situation where maybe sappers are still the best thing, and maybe engineering is still the best for speedrunners, because you have target dummies and sappers. So maybe if you're a speedrunning guild, everyone's engineering. But maybe if you're a parsing team and you want to focus on your personal damage, if you're a warrior, you're a blacksmith, armor smith that makes a weapon. If you're like, maybe there's a difference versus your individual damage versus overall raid wide damage. If that makes sense.
I'm following.
Yeah. And then in terms of like what we know in classic versus like what we don't know, I don't know if I can talk about this, but somebody talked to me about the idea of when they were making sod. Just gonna give it away there. Won't say who though. About are we recreating classic or vanilla? And they're two different things. So classic is when you go into something that you know, and you're min-maxing and you're thinking of the best way to do it. You're going into a game you already know and perfecting your personal plays, your personal abilities, whatever, yada yada yada. Recreating vanilla is you are going into something you don't know, and it's challenging because you're doing it for the first time and there's no reference on how to do this. So that was kind of like Karazhan Crypts, Scarlet Enclave. Even though Scarlet Enclave had like arguably retail style mechanics, we were in classic and we were going into a raid. We had no idea what to do. We did not know the mechanics were. We were learning in real time how Beatrix worked. How the hell do we get certain of her lieutenants up there? What do her lieutenants do? We were learning, oh, this epic thing dropped off Beatrix. Is this what, or this legendary thing dropped off Beatrix? This is the start of the Ashbringer quest chain. right?
Mhm.
We were and with Karas and Crypts, the attunement process, right? We picked up a quest and figured things out. Where do we go next? We had to read this letter and learn that part of it was in the wetlands, um, Demon Fall Canyon, and then somewhere else I forgot. But that's like recreating vanilla versus recreating classic. And I think maybe I'm wrong. The player base is tired of playing classic, and they want to have a recreated vanilla experience. And to do that, you have to mess with the things that you think you know and make us learn new things and go, oh, that's not the best anymore. Oh, well, then what is? And I think that's more fun. At least for me, that's more fun when I'm in a vanilla setting and I'm learning that something's different and something's better now. And now I have to change my mindset while still playing a vanilla version of the game.
Yeah, I think you both bring up interesting points because Eben, you're talking about like the integrity of like classic, and I guess like the personality or the ethos of the makeup, the genetic makeup of what makes classic classic, what makes it, and is changing these things going to make the game not feel how the game feels currently. And then Jordy, you bring up an interesting point too, where it's like this classic versus vanilla thing, right? Where I think the reason people play classic and are so charmed by it is like it's this certain style of gameplay and it's a certain familiar world, whether it's the graphics, the speed of the progression, um, the pace, of unlocking and upgrading your character or what. But yeah, it's hard because you're changing something that's so like personal and meaningful to so many people, but you also want to retain the personality and charm that makes that game what it is, right? Um, and like from what I've gathered or kind of like assume, maybe this is just my opinion, but like um, I think people want to experience like the world in its familiarity, but they want to learn new things within that world, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the big thing is like, how do you add those things that you learn and discover without taking away from, what makes the game so comfortable and approachable and, the reason people keep coming back to it, right? So, um, yeah, I think you said, as many changes as possible think that's true. I think, that's why we're in the situation we're in where, it's the third time we're doing TBC, and I think, it doesn't have that same kind of spark to it that, the first or second time had. Um, people can only play classic so many times. You can only do so many fresh starts and keep so many people interested, right? So it's like this question of how do we retain the original world but make it different enough and interesting enough and new enough that it's going to, you know, expand upon this idea, which I think is like, but yeah, the biggest challenge, right? It's like this, you have people in both camps, right? You have people who want classic plus, and I guess then you have people who want vanilla plus, right? So it's like, what's the definition of each, and how is that going to change the game? Because I think at the end of the day, with World of Warcraft as a whole, um, if you want to kind of look at it like this, which is kind of weird, but like every expansion is like classic plus 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 plus, right? Because you're taking the original
Yeah.
game and you're just kind of expanding upon it and expanding upon it. Um, and so I think with retail, it's like they've gone so far with kind of like these additions that it's like it is no longer the original game. So like, how do we mitigate that from happening and retain the original idea of the world without ending up in a retail situation where we've added so much to the game over time that it's a shell of what it used to be, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to think about.
So
And I think,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think it all goes back to what we're talking about, right? How a focus more on horizontal progression versus vertical really helps slow the pace down. Like, I'll trigger this topic out real quick too. One is not having eye level increase be so big raid to raid, right? But also, let's say they released another raid along with AQ40. Let's say it's that Furbolg raid we never got in Ashara, right? But the our level of the raid matches AQ40. There is not more. There's not stronger gear, but there's more gear available. So it's not. It's a new raid. It has new content, but it's not stronger than AQ40. But you have a little more options, and maybe it's not a 13, 12 boss raid. Maybe it's like 4 bosses. But there's maybe we don't want to use that for bulk raid as that example. There maybe it's a different raid, whatever, right? So people who are really love vanilla really want to see what was behind those gates, right, in Nashara. But just giving us more stuff to do, without necessarily making your character insanely stronger. 'Cause that's one thing. As everyone, I love SOD. Maybe all of us here love SOD, right? But I do agree with my character who's level 60 is matching my Frost, Death Knight, and ICC doing damage. It's a little weird, right? We don't want that, because then 2 phases later, Molten Core is completely done, and you have to really slow down. You don't Molten Core completely done. Maybe at least not one raid after Nax.
No, I got you. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. So, in my personal opinion, in regards to that, I would say, is he frozen for you as well, Aaron, or just me? 1 second. Okay, did my internet cut out? Okay.
My internet. I don't know if it's my internet or your internet, but I'm slowing down.
No, yeah, I think it was
Okay,
Discord. I think Discord froze because my internet, I'm 1 gigabyte
Okay.
fiber wired in. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Me too. Okay.
Is that all y'all?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So both of us disconnected.
I'm
from
gonna
you.
turn my fan
Yeah.
off. That's fine.
Okay. It was
Yeah.
Discord then.
You guys
So-
turned into a Daft Punk song there for a second.
Yeah. But I do get what you're saying, Jody. And in
Okay.
regards to the gearing, I fundamentally disagree that the gear should be exact 1-to-1. Me and Aaron discussed this before, but what I said was, I do think at a certain point there does need to be a reset in like Classic Plus, whether it's a hard reset or a soft reset. I think that it should take 5 years, and by the time we're on phase 10, the first 4 or 5 phases should be completely irrelevant. Drop to 10-man. The original 40-man or 20-man is still there, but they remade it as a 10-man UBRS style dungeon or whatever for catch-up gear or that kind of stuff. And I think each fundamental raid tier should increase power, but minimally. So Molten Core to Black Vanilla should be 10%. Black Vanilla to AQ40 should be 10%. AQ40 to, Nax, 10%. Nax to Scarlet Enclave. Scarlet Enclave to Grimbatol. Grimbatol to Hyjal. Hyjal back to Grimbatol. Whatever the raid tiers are, right? It should be 10% increase consistently, 10 to 15%. And that way you always feel like there's progression. And that way certain pieces still feel really raw. Like your Onslaught Girdle, super powerful. You could potentially use that for 6 phases. A one-off item from every couple raid tiers that is phenomenally strong, like your DFTs and your Onslaught Girdles, your Quick Strike Rings, your Striker's Bow, right? A Striker's Mark. Stuff like that just really lasts for a while that you can keep. And even though there are upgrades, even if you don't get them, you don't feel gimped for having it. But I don't think, hypothetically, because knowing the classic player base, a lot of people, like Louis GDKPs in this context, I'm not necessarily for them, but I'm not against them. But if the raid tier gave the exact same loot, most people wouldn't run it just for a cosmetic difference or a set bonus difference. Because keep in mind, say you're full AQ BIS, completely BISed out. And let's say in Classic Plus, it's 16 weeks a phase, right? Because it's a brand new raid tier, new zones, and new quests, whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Do you seriously think that a huge portion of the player base would actively raid 16 weeks to maybe get a 1 or 2% upgrade at most for a couple of off pieces? And maybe, Boomkin's new set bonus is way better, but Fury's is better in AQ or whatever. So only certain classes really benefit from the new gear. Do you truly believe that the modern Classic player base would partake in that kind of raiding? So this was something I was going to talk about. We'll come back to this question later, but it was like the Vanilla Plus versus like Classic Plus in the sense of when you make the world and the journey and the characters matter versus Classic where it's just the end game because the journey is long dead. And in your context, it's the journey where you're playing the game for the sake of playing the game, not for the reward of playing or getting something for your time in, time out. And do you truly think the player base cares for that?
Well, I do believe that your time should matter in classic or classic plus, right? Like vanilla, I could log in and get nothing done, which you know but like an anniversary, it's hard. It's much harder to get gear, right? My warrior, I played a warrior like an idiot for some reason. Still has his pre-bis blue weapons. I have frostbite and like Serathil on my orc warrior, and I only have one piece of 40 man raid gear, and that's my tier 2.5 shoulders. And everything else is either from 20 man raids or like crafting. So I have Lionheart helm, or I have pre-bis gear. I do believe that there's a sense of it's hard because you should be able to get something out of playing when you play, but I don't want everything just to be free, I guess. Like nothing should just be like I can easily get upgrades by logging in and playing for a little bit. I don't think so. Because then it just makes everything really easy, and then we're playing retail again. And then that's gonna turn off a lot of people. And there's a sense of upgrades should be, I guess, earned. But it's like I mentioned earlier, where not all of your upgrades should come from PvP or raiding. There should be other content out there that gets you an upgrade. Like if delves are put into the game, or other solo content was put in the game, I don't mind there being some solo content systems that give you legitimate pieces of gear that you can use that would be next to BIS, or maybe in some cases it's I don't know. I don't think it should be BIS, but maybe I don't know. Maybe you can convince me either way. But there should be more ways of upgrading your player power outside of a weekly raid or ranking in PvP. And I think the ranking system that's a whole different topic too. But so that won't last in a classic plus version of the game. But I think there should be ways for you to log in, and if you're doing solo content, that you could get an upgrade. Not for every piece. Let's say a really challenging delve, and I know people hate that I keep bringing up delves. I'm just using that as an example. A really challenging delve that's actually challenging can reward bracers, cloak, and like a boots, or like maybe a neck or something. I don't know. It can reward that you could feel like, okay, I don't have to wear my Devil Star leggings because I don't have any other upgrades for my warrior. I got something else out of it. I don't have to wear what is it? I'm looking at the warrior previous right now. My Van Brace is the sadist, right? I got this from doing solo content that was actually challenging. And I say actually challenging a lot because you just don't want it to be free. You don't want, here you go. You walked into the delve, got an upgrade, because that's retail, right? And if people like that, then you have that game. You have retail, right? I just think you have to maintain the integrity of upgrades that can feel punishing because, like I said, my warrior still has blue weapons, but make it a little more accessible, I guess, through other venues of getting gear.
I mean, no.
So,
Go ahead, Darren. No, go
and
ahead.
I was gonna say, so Evan, in your example, it was like you said hard reset, right? So is that like the idea that Molten Core would eventually become invalidated?
I think it's more of a Molten Core would start valid by phase 5. It would be kind of like a catch-up raid. Everybody's over-geared. Somebody's got a new ult. We're going to run a quick Molten Core funnel gear to them or whatever. Or we're going to go in there, get the tokens as fast as we can and move on. And then, then by phase 7, you wouldn't be running Molten Core.
Yeah.
It would be like a 10-man raid or something. And then by like phase 10 or phase 12, they would like hard reset the gear and effectively like stat squish everything. So instead of like a power squish for your character, they just stat squish all the gear, so that then we eventually start getting Molten Core phase 1 gear all over again. Now that's not the best example. It's just after 5 or 6 years, because otherwise it becomes vertical.
That's controversial,
right? But it becomes vertical otherwise.
Well, what I was thinking too is like, in saying there's a reset. So like, what because we're talking about horizontal progression, right? I
Mhm.
think the idea is that you would want Molten Core to be people would want to run it for some reason at any given point in any part of the timeline. So I guess my pushback on that idea would be like, what's the difference between that idea and just releasing a new expansion pack minus the level gap, like going from 60 to 70? Because it seems like it's got all the same kind of other core ideas that a new expansion pack would bring in, minus the actual leveling up part, right? Because you're still, with a new expansion pack, invalidating all the previous stuff, but you're introducing new raids. So it's kind of like that same concept minus the actual leveling up.
The issue is there is only two successful horizontal MMOs, right? Horizontal progression. It's Old School RuneScape and Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 2, there has been zero power progression since 2012. We're about 14 years in almost, coming up on that, and there has been no power increase. I think effectively from launch to now, the new gear is like 3%, 4% better. So imagine playing the same game for 14 years to be 4% stronger than you were 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Versus Old School RuneScape, where there hasn't been more power or better power or stronger gear since launch. Every new piece of item, new cosmetic, new grind has given something equivalent to the old BIS. So hypothetically, you farm Thunder Fury and Molten Core. 10 years from now in Classic Plus, you farm the new legendary, Malfurion's big toe piece, the dagger, whatever. It is the exact same strength or power level as a Thunder Fury. I don't think World of Warcraft fundamentally works as a horizontal game. I know everybody loves to espouse that and like speak it up and just, push for that. But fundamentally speaking, even classic WoW is not a horizontal progression game, because Molten Core is 98% something invalidated by Naxxramas. If there is a new raid tier after Naxxramas, Molten Core will not be run. People are barely running Molten Core and Naxxramas right now. So the issue is, if we go 5 years and there isn't a stat squish or whatever, you're going to effectively have a huge portion of the game that nobody goes back to at all, and it might as well be a brand new expansion launch. Because in TBC, who's running Molten Core? A prop paladin farming Thunder Fury so he can make his AoE dungeon farm or his AoE dungeon grind or whatever location farm easier. Or somebody farming Nax for an ATS for the ult, or because they didn't get to finish it in Classic. And the issue is, whether it's an expansion or a reset, content will become invalidated regardless, and there is no way around that based on how World of Warcraft is as a game fundamentally. I do not see a reality where we're not getting a stat squish, an item squish. Heck, maybe they level squish us. So instead of, us going from, the items, you go from 60 back to 50, and the new expansion, you got to level from 50 to 60 all over again. I don't know how they would do it, but it has to be some form of squish eventually. Whether it's 2, 5, 10 years from now, that's up to the devs. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Jordy has a different opinion, or you do.
Yeah. So I guess a quick question. What's the reason people keep coming back to Guild Wars?
A brand new expansion, new zones, a new raid. So you finish the raid, you finish Molten Core, and you stop playing for 2 years, and you come back and you raid for like 2 or 3 months again. Enjoy the new raid, and then you quit again, and you go back to playing other games, and you come back. It's very seasonal as a game.
Okay. And then the other thing I was going to mention is like, I agree with you where, like when it comes to power and it comes to like verticality versus horizontal, like, it's like fundamentally how the game is designed. And let's be real, like they're not going to redesign the core of what World of Warcraft is and the progression and everything with this new rendition of the game, right? And I think like a really smart horizontal approach is like what Jordy was talking about earlier, right? Where it's like through achievements and these other means of like, replayability or giving reason to go back to these previous things. Because like with Jordy's example and your example put together, there would still be a reason to go back to Molten Core because you want to get an achievement or a cosmetic or X, Y, and Z, right? So it's like you're kind of introducing like the mentality of horizontal, which is, all the content is still there's still a reason to do it in some capacity. But as you were saying, as far as player power and upgrading and getting, going up the totem pole, you're not changing the game fundamentally. So you're kind of having, that's what I was talking about last time a little bit, like the diagonal progression, right? Where you can have the best of both worlds in a sense, where you're rewarded for both kinds of gameplay.
So while Jody
I
responds,
think
just want to quickly say we hear like a little bit of like static or something in the background of your mic, Aaron. So just letting you know about that. Yeah, but Jody, go ahead.
I think it's a fan. I think maybe, but well, it's like my example was, there's stuff that professions, right? Like, what if, let's say in phase 11, we're doing the new Defias raid, and Blizzard's like, hey, there's a new ore, new deposit, only drops a molten core, refined dark iron deposit. You can go into the raid and you have to mine this ore for something new offered for blacksmith engineering in phase 11. There's stuff they can do that makes you want to go back to the old raids, but key points is it has to be in the area of the final boss, because you can make a raid team of new players like, hey, I want to do molten core, awesome. Hey man, I want to do molten core too. I need to get my mining stuff. And if it's by like Gehennis, then you just mine it. All right, guys, good luck. I'm out. And then you just ninja your group, right? But if you put it in the Ragnaros room, you're gonna kill Ragnaros. Unless you're a real jerk, you're gonna leave and not kill Ragnaros, right? Or you've been off Nefarian. It's like, hey, there's like a chest behind Nefarian's throne. You have to kill Nefarian, right, to get that thing. But also, you have to remember that player power in vanilla is not that big. Like, I'm used to SOD. I'm looking at the warrior sims right now. From phase 1 bis to phase 6 is a 291 DPS difference. Whereas in SOD, it's a 2,683 DPS difference from phase 4 to Scarlet Enclave. That's when you get the Ashbringer. So, and in phase 6 bis, Lionheart Helm, still bis. Look at phase 5. I'm still wearing Diamond Flask.
When I was saying phases, I also meant like raid tier. So by like tier like 10.
Yeah.
So I should
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, phase. Yeah. In Nax Ramus, Girdle the Mentor, you finally replace Onslaught Girdle. Band of Unnatural Forces, you finally replace Quick Checkering, right? But if you don't have Girdle the Mentor, if you don't have Band of Unnatural Forces, well, then you're still wearing Onslaught Girdle. You're still wearing Quick Checkering. When is Blizzard going to put in a new raid that upgrades Girdle the Mentor or Band of Unnatural Forces? So at least for now, you're still going to want to go to
So, yeah, Discord's really wonky today.
Sorry. Or if you don't have certain rings, like there's like certain upgrades get replaced, but that's only in Nax Ramus. So if let's say we get Scarlet Enclave, but a not SOD power creep version, where we don't wear full tier, right? It's like, I think that's lazy, by the way, when your upgrade gear is just full tier set. S-Fan brought that up too before SOD even came out, and he called that one, unfortunately. Oh, actually, he brought that in Molten Core phase. Yeah, I mean, phase 6 bis, you're still wearing chromatic boots from phase 2, right? So
that's an interesting
question. If you're not wearing,
I didn't even think about that.
Well,
do you think
because you are
Plus they should actually have a brand new tier set every new raid tier, or do you think it should be every second or third raid tier that you get a full new tier set? Like, because the clown gear, right? Like Boomkins, for example, had almost no raid gear aside from a couple of random pieces, or Shadow Priest, right?
Yeah.
Shadow Priest rank 13 was like bis the entire time. I think you replaced Shadow Priest in rank 4 in Nax Ramus maybe, but like, do you think that's actually good design to have that kind of clown gear in this context where you're literally just keeping random pieces of gear? Because that's very horizontal. But is that player friendly? Like, do you want that level of horizontal progression where, for example, your gear is such a mishmash that you're wearing the randomest shit for 2 years straight because there wasn't an upgrade designed initially.
Mhm. I think, I haven't even
But
thought about that before. How do I sound, by the way?
Yeah,
Are we
you're better.
better, yeah.
beauty? Cut that NVIDIA broadcast noise cancellation on now. No, I have not thought about it like that, Eben, where the new raid doesn't introduce a new tier set of gear. But just kind of chewing on that to begin with, I think that's kind of a cool idea. And I think it's like it gives more options because one, it gives everyone more time to obtain, a tier set if they want to get a tier set. But then there's all the pieces of gear that aren't a part of the tier set, right? There's rings and necklaces and cloaks and weapons and all these things. So it's interesting to upgrade those things without having to worry about this complete replacement of, needing a full new set of gear. And two, I guess, like to the clown suit idea, if we're adding cosmetics through achievements and all these different things, I can only imagine there would be some kind of transmog system, right? So it's like, you know, and they can make the gear not look, like make you look like a clown. It's not like you've got pink shoulders and yellow boots, and so thematically it can still kind of be cohesive in a sense. But I think that's a really interesting concept that I've actually never thought of before. I like that a lot.
Um, you can also do. I think it's how Burning Crusade works, right? I think what was it? Hyjal, Black Temple had tier 6, right? Yeah, tier 6, and then what's it called? Sunwell Plateau had more tier 6, just for tier pieces that weren't traditional tier pieces. So that's right? Is that right? That's how it worked, right?
I think
I think
so.
I think so. So you can have 2 phases of raids that offer the same tier. They're just spread out. Also, I was wrong by a lot on the warrior thing. By the way, I'm sorry. It's a 10,000 DPS difference. I forgot
In Sod.
because
Yeah.
because warriors were doing like 14,000 DPS with Ashbringer.
Right.
Yeah, that was my fault. So I'm really off on that. So hopefully people who watch the full video won't get in the comments and say, "You dumbass." That's not, whatever.
not
But
Just stop the video there.
yeah,
That's it. I've heard
this
enough
dirty
here.
guy. I can't listen to him again.
Enough of it. Yeah.
this guy loves
It's so
Sod,
incorrect.
dumbass. No, but transmog that's a whole video, I think, because
That's a can of worms.
like it's hard because I think cosmetics like Sod did are good. Where enchanted weapon, a toy turns you into a Mortal Kombat character. Like toys that change your appearance. Sure. I think this is a split idea, maybe. People love classic because you're wearing the best gear of that phase. And everyone knows what you did by what you're wearing. So they can tell, I can tell, when a rogue is level 40. I know what they're wearing. I can tell when a warrior is like level 47-ish. They still got the Herod shoulder. Maybe they got big bad pauldrons instead. Maybe one of the dual wield weapons that never drops in that ZF as well. They still have scarlet leggings on. Maybe they might have the plate. They might have the plate ice barb something. Not ice barb sphere, ice whatever from RFD off the Lich boss. You can tell what someone looks like as they're leveling, but you also tell when someone's playing in the game as well. Like you can tell by their gear what they've accomplished. I think people love that in classic. I don't think they mind toys too much, like the gob toy turns into a goblin, or like if you turn into the Atal Ari, whatever the first boss of Sunken Temple. That not too much, but when it's like you can fully transmog the gear you have forever, that's when like people are like, okay, I don't know, that's not classic to me.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
But I think also making
no, go ahead.
Sorry, but making full tier your bis always is not ideal because that is just straight vertical progression.
And
So
I agree with that. Fundamentally, I think you're correct. I never even thought about that. See, that's the thing with Classic Plus is like it's little things like this, the intricacies of like the nitty gritty that nobody really thinks about. Because like we've been talking about horizontal progression for almost an hour, and there's a lot of things we disagree or like don't agree with. And like the thing here is we don't even have access to the back end data where we're using hyperbole to like trying to configure out an idea of what's actually happening, what it would look like, and things of that nature. So you look at what we're discussing right now between, for example, just tier sets. If the devs just do just raw tier sets, it means the power progression will eventually get, tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 to tier 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whereas if they did what Jeremy said and said, molten cores tier 1, and then you get some tier 2 from, some tier 2 in Blackwing Lair, and then you finish it off in AQ, and then AQ, for example, also has the 0.5 set as well at the same time. And then Naxxramas is tier 3. But then instead of having a tier 4 in the next raid tier, you break the tier. You start now getting pieces of gear that might not be as strong, like as stronger individually, but is it worth sacrificing it for your tier set? And then you can, they can do 1 or 2 tiers on just random gear pieces where you just kind of go like, if I build the right kind of broken gear, all these individually strong pieces will be better. And then once again in tier 6, you shift the meta again. Tiers back. So now you got to pick and choose. Yeah. And I feel like that actually adds a lot more flavor and like power differences, because instead of making the power go from like 15% each raid tier, it could just be something as high as 5% because of how the power is changing, how you're utilizing that power, and how you're like equipping it and showcasing it.
Well, you see it a little bit too with NXT and Ragnaros, right?
It's helmet and pants. Yeah, hints of your tier. I'm always a fan of tier having like maybe quality of life bonuses, but never being like absolute. Maybe sometimes, right? It could be like, I need this 2 set, but you run into the issue of SOD, right? Where Blizzard introduced, it was a Ret Paladin. I should know this. I wore it too. I'm pretty sure. Let me find it real quick.
Like the tier there was set a 2 set, spec, right?
Yeah, but there was a 2 set for Ret Paladin that was so strong that we just could never drop it. It was the seals.
Well, you could with the shoulder enchant when they added it to the shoulder enchant eventually. But that was a Nax change. You could only break it in Nax if I remember correctly, with the shoulder enchant.
Yeah, I should know this because we use it all the time.
Yeah, until, I remember what you're talking about, because there's a prop pally in like in Scarlet Enclave. I also had to go and like farm the fucking the event for it.
I know what it was. It was where your seals didn't
fall off.
Your judgment didn't consume your seal, and then the 4 set was your judgments do this X amount more damage, and it was just so strong. And it was tier 2 ret. It was so strong. We just how do we get rid of this? We created an issue. We created the most strongest tier set bonus for Ret Paladins and Prop Paladins that we can't make anything new to get rid of it. Now, granted, that is kind of cool because it's horizontal, right? You're going to want to get your tier set bonus from Blackwing Lair still. So maybe that's not a bad thing, but it was so insanely strong that every time we were theory crafting, I was like, well, we have to build around this because there's surely nothing they can do to fix it. And then what did they do? They just nerfed it.
Well, no, didn't they just put a shoulder enchant? So you could just put a shoulder enchant for it?
They did, but then going into Scarlet Enclave, they made adjustments to some of the tier sets. And for prop paladins, they made it so prop couldn't even use it. So they changed some, and that could happen in the game too. We could be playing, which it will happen. We'll see changes to gear probably. We're assuming this is a forever game mode and not seasonal. So if it's forever, then we have to expect the devs are going to go in and interfere. They can say, hey, this is too strong, we're going to nerf it. Hey, this is too weak, we're going to buff it. So that's also something to consider when we're playing this game mode that is a lot of pressure for the devs to make right now.
And honestly, talking about the fact that, it's a forever game mode, right? We're going to be hypothetically 10, 15, 20 years. The question here becomes of like end game goals for the average player. In Classic WoW right now, it's just, if we're being real, it's raid logging. You log in, you raid,
Mhm.
or you farm gold for consume so you can raid.
Yeah.
What would the end game of a Classic Plus be in? We'll discuss both horizontal and vertical. With vertical, it's just raid logging. At the end of the day, the previous content gets invalidated because the new content is better or stronger or better gear or this. You don't run old content. But on a horizontal progression, what does the end game look like? Because you run into the issue of there being so much to do, it's overwhelming. Old school RuneScape takes 97 something years to finish everything. It's legitimately impossible for one person to actually get everything unlocked, right? So, is that good as well in the context of Classic? Wow, would the player base actually want so much progression, so many options to play at the same time? Or do you think that would overwhelm the Classic player base because they're not used to that kind of gameplay? They're used to being able to finish the checklist of what they're able to do. So if the checklist isn't finishable, would people actually be happy?
If it depends. Like I mentioned earlier, I think solo content or like challenge modes are like I'm not saying challenge modes like in Miss Pandaria sense challenge modes, but I think challenges and solo content is key to making people want to keep playing. Like a much better version of Torghast, right? Where I have something that shows off that I did something really, really hard in the game. Whether it's a mount, right? We can put mounts in there too. People love showing off their, like Willie said in this video, they love showing off their ZG mounts, right? In Stormwind. But you want things that you can flex. And we're used to flexing rare drops. That's it. I got Corrupted Ashbringer, or I got the ZG Tiger. I got this cool toy. But the way classic players are used to that is rare drops. I got Thunder Fury. Thunder Fury is not hard to get. It's hard because the shit doesn't drop.
Right.
There's no actual grind to get Thunder Fury, minus the Arcanine bars. But that's all a gold sink or you're farming it. It's not hard to do that. There needs to be something you can do that's a challenge that shows off you did something really hard in the game and you get to flex that to everybody. And should it be cosmetic? I think that's healthier for the environment of the game than making it something that's BIS player power. Because when it's BIS player power, everyone and whether you should care or not feels like shit for not having it now. And maybe they should just grow up. I don't know, but it's like you can make it to where something looks super badass, but it's a cosmetic thing that they worked hard and they earned for that they get the flex in Stormwind or Orgrimmar when they're RP walking around with their cool item, right? And people do that when they have Thunder Fury or even in Sod when they had the legendary Ashbringer. And even the legendary Ashbringer, that's like a baby steps into what I'm talking about because there was solo content. You had to go into Naxxramas and defeat the Four Horsemen or like the Shade of Mogrian, whatever, by yourself. And it was kind of hard, kind of. I think that should be to the nth degree where it's like, okay, I'm on pull number 100 and something here. Can I do this? Maybe I need to come back and wait and get some gear for my raid or do something to upgrade, right? And just stuff like that flexes that you did that. And we saw that with Kansu too in Sod 2, where you complete the challenge 17 times without dying, you get the sunglasses. And not only do you get sunglasses, but that unlocks a quest chain where you get really cool cosmetics and toys, that like the Mortal Kombat toy, but you also get like the Sunlight Sword, which is a reference to Dark Souls. There's a whole bunch of the stuff you can get too from that stuff. And stuff like that, that's optional, but really cool, players will want to do outside of raid because it's something they can flex when they're, hanging out in their cities. But again, if it's too easy, nobody cares.
So
if everyone's walking around with it, no one cares.
So hypothetically speaking, let's say Classic Plus launches, right? Phase 1, a little lighter on content because everybody's getting to 60. There's a new raid tier, a couple new zones, new dungeons, whatever, right? Nobody's expecting everything to come out at once. But then let's say we get into Phase 2 or Phase 3. And now you have, hypothetically speaking, right? You have Delves, you have the Mage Tower, you have Mop Challenge modes, you have Arena, brand new Battleground seasons. So, like the Battleground, that Battle Pass like system where you grind this much honor to unlock this and that or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you also have, heroic dungeons or Mythic Plus in this context. Do you think so? That's just 5 systems, right there. Do you think that's too many systems to have in Classic Plus? Do you think?
Yes.
Okay, so in your opinion, how many systems should Classic Plus have then? Now I'm using these as an example. I'm not saying they're good for the game, but hypothetically speaking, just I know people like
just
Mythic Plus in my Classic Plus.
Yeah, so let's just clarify like that. No Mythic Plus. We're not saying Mythic Plus or mob challenge modes, whatever. But like, you just need things for people to do, and I think one thing you could easily just copy paste into Classic that was offered in Wrath and forward is achievements.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're gonna bitch about achievements, I'm sorry, I don't know if I want to cuss too much. Sorry,
you're allowed. That's fine.
If we're gonna complain about achievements, then get over it. Like that's just an easy W for everyone. Like you can do something outside of the game and show off these achievements that you can do. That's just really easy to add that people want to do. Delves, sure. It depends. I don't think there's such a thing as too much as long as it's not mandatory. And I'll always use Torghast as a reference. The moment you make it mandatory, you have to do this to advance your player power, everyone's going to hate it.
Okay.
You can't make something that's solo content mandatory. It has to be fun.
So let's do an example here. You know, it's you've done your raid for the week. You know, you raid log. Let's say you raid Tuesday or Thursday, so you have the rest of the week open. And you know you have Mythic Plus available and DAOs available and all the stuff available, and they only give achievements or cosmetics or mounts or toys. Do you think there is such a thing as too much for secondary things, or do you feel like people get FOMO, like I'm not playing enough, I'm not grinding enough, I'm gonna miss out the season mount for PvP, I'm gonna miss out on this transmog item, oh my god, the mythic title for this, I didn't hit 3k IO in Classic Plus, not better gear, but you're just grinding for the score or whatever, right? And do you think a game that's meant to be forever, that's meant to have so much content that you don't want to play something else, you don't get bored, how do you make it so there's so much content that people don't get bored, but you don't make it overwhelming and it just becomes FOMO?
Because it just shouldn't be seasonal. That's the thing. It should be, you can do it whenever you want. Like it's a challenge that's in there forever, and then when it gets too easy, then they add a new one. Once you outgear it, or they can do it where it's like Mob's challenge modes where your eye level is squished. Like Mob challenge, I think it's like your item level is like 470 something, and that's no matter how good your gear is, you're always at that item level. So it could be like that too, where everyone's in the same playing field. Maybe that would be too popular, but I think the moment it gets really, really easy, then you just offer something new. But I think if you have seasonal challenges, that's big FOMO and retail. And if you like retail, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I like retail to a certain extent. I'm a cutting edge raider here, right? Then play retail, right? I think if you have that in Classic, it's FOMO. And I don't think FOMO is good for the game. I think FOMO is allowed when Molten Core becomes too easy, right? I think that's natural. We can't avoid that. You know, when our gear, it makes it so we're stomping on bosses that are 7 raids old, sure. I think that's answered by, putting in the items that you want to get later on in Molten Core, like the profession stuff example we give. But I think seasonal achievements should not be so frequent, because then people feel like they have to log on. You shouldn't feel like you have to log on. You want to log on. It's a big difference.
Yeah, it goes both ways too, right? Like there's FOMO, and then there's like incentive to play the game, right? Where it's rewarding your player base for participating, and where do you draw the line between what's FOMO and then just what's genuinely incentivizing someone to play the game? Like I think of like things like the competitors tabard or like random feats of strength, right? In the achievement system, where it's like, because at the end of the day, Blizzard is a company and they want people to consistently play their game and stay sub to the game. And so it's like, you don't want to create a system where you have like everyone feels like they need to get everything, but you're going to have people who, they do want to get the mount from a certain season, or they want to get, a certain item that's time limited. And it's cool to go back and have those items, right? Like if you have the competitors tabard, you can't get that anymore. But it's like the same thing as you were saying before with that flex, right? It's like you're providing this kind of cool flex thing where it's like, yeah, I got rewarded to participate in the game and stay consistent with it. Now, it's giving the player base a heads up, right? Like if you have 3 months to get something, is that really FOMO? If you're giving someone
Yeah.
that much time, like the availability to get it, it's like if you don't get it in 3 months, like I'm sorry, but that's kind of on you, right? You can't say like, hey,
Yeah.
this is a FOMO tactic, but it's like, so you can kind of have a fine, distinguishing, line between what's
Yeah.
FOMO and what's you know incentivizing people to stay consistent and want to participate in your game, right? Um, I think achievements are really good, and yeah, kind of like what we were talking about before was just like what other types of gameplay can you provide, right? With RuneScape, I think you've just had so many years, and just how the game is structured, it just takes so much time to level up and do all these things. So I don't think you'd run into a situation where there's so much stuff that you can't get everything, but um, having enough content that it is a challenge to obtain everything is also pretty important, right? Like end game content, you have PvP raids, dungeons. Hopefully, we get arenas. Um, and then it's kind of like, yeah, these other avenues of like um, in-game events, profession events, things like that. Like I think of like the Stranglethorn fishing extravaganza. I think of cool events like that where it's creating these kind of fun community world events that
Yeah.
um, they don't have to be a seasonal thing per se, but they can happen like once a month, right? So it's like you can kind of get the best of both worlds in a sense where it's like you're incentivizing people to log in and play, but if you miss it, it's coming next month and you don't have to worry about it. Um, so
So
I think, oh, sorry.
no,
Yeah,
go, no, go
you.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to finish that off by saying like, I think there's a lot of power in-game events like the fishing extravaganza, right? Um, it helps create some of the more memorable experiences. I think of like the Gates of AQ, things like that,
Mhm.
where it's just this big world event, and I think people remember that more than hey, I ran Nax, right? It's like hey, I participated in the war effort. So
Yeah.
And so like, and that's the thing I'm saying is like the Gates of AQ. It's a seasonal FOMO event. It's a one-time thing. If you weren't there, you can't go back to it. Short of re-releasing like Classic Plus Anniversary, 10 years after Classic Plus or whatever. But it's like, isn't to a degree seasonal content that goes away good to create those memorable events? So hypothetically, let's use the Blood Moon event as in this context. Let's say they add a brand new PvP world event, right? Let's say they're adding. I'm just thinking of a raid here. Timbermore Hall does a raid, right? And they turn Ajara into a full-blown battleground. Alliance towers, Horde towers, like little like the barracks and stuff, and you have to keep fighting back and forth. You get a legendary, like a furball cape or something that's like got a really cool like look to it. Should that not
mhm.
be seasonal? That you cannot repeat? That should be a one-time thing that you were there for and then it's gone?
So you're saying the entire just the event's gone after the
A
raid's
month
not
or
current?
whatever, right? Yeah, yeah. No, well, after like with the AQ event, it's gone forever, right? You can do like
Yeah.
the quest line part of it, but you can never finish it again, right?
Well, yeah.
Um,
So like the scepter, the shifting
yeah.
sands. Like you can't get them out, but you can still do the question. Yeah, I think stuff like that's fine. Um, I think more seasonal stuff is not good. I
Mhm.
think when you have a lot, like I think when every patch has seasonal achievements or upgrades, um, or like just cosmetics, I'm not sure that's such a good thing outside of like clearing, like if it's through clearing the content, sure. But if it's like, I think too much FOMO, it turns off players. I think if you have like just like the fire cape, right? I mean, how long has that been a thing to get in RuneScape?
Like 10 years. I think it's been there from the beginning, if I
Yeah.
recall correctly, right?
So it's stuff like that, like fire cape stuff and WoW, where still challenging. It still takes time to get it. It's not just a walk in the park to get it. You can still get it, but eventually, maybe it does get easy. And when that gets easy, let's add a new achievement system in there, or you can add it over time because maybe it's 3 months later and all we have is Delve 1 that gives you cool pickaxe. I'm just creating a fake example here. The more content, I think, the better. And you could have content like, hey, this 5-man dungeon is really, really hard. And if you complete it, cool. If you have like maybe a mob challenge mode where you complete it within a certain amount of time, really cool too. You get a cool cosmetic for it. Like now maybe the cosmetic turns your weapon into something cooler, right? Maybe that is a level of transmog, for completing it. I think there is a certain level of transmog people will accept. Like transmogging your full gear, maybe not so much. But completing a really hard achievement that makes your weapon look like this really badass weapon, maybe people like that. I don't know.
So here's a hypothetical where Molten Core is launching, and let's just say it's the season of fire, hypothetically, right? And you can go out into the open world, farm resources, a currency, and you can turn it into unlock a mount or unlock toys or like a little transmog effect of a fire effect for your weapon or whatever. But then at the end of that season, it's gone. So when Blackwing Lair launches, not there. No power, no nothing. It's just cosmetic and collection. So, you got like an elemental mount or this or that. To make the people that are playing feel rewarded for their time. It's not hard, it's not difficult, it's just time consuming. You log in, you grind, you do your stuff, and then you earn your stuff. And they do say 2 of these a year. Every 6 months, they make a new event, a new season, to give people a reason to log on. Not hard, not difficult, just time consuming. Do you think across the board that seasonal content is a no-go and it's horrible for the game? Or are you just saying so long as there's no power and it's not a big deal?
I think that's hard because again, I'm not the biggest fan, and if the majority says I'm wrong, sure. I'm not the biggest fan of you just get things for free. I think in Classic, most of what you have to do is earned in some way, shape, or form. I think as a level 60 warrior, getting a group to do a level 45 dungeon for your Prebis ring, the Blackstone ring, that's an achievement of its own. Getting that group to go clear the content that's really easy and doesn't benefit anybody but yourself is rewarding. I think Hand of Justice is getting that is a huge achievement because one, when it dropped off Angerforge or Anvilmar, I'm sorry, that's Angerforge, I think. The drop rate was super low, and then when it drops off of
Thracian,
the Emperor in Phase 4 and beyond, getting there and killing it is time is a reward. You form the group, you're killing the last boss of this dungeon. That is like a reward for your time. I'm not the biggest fan of just doing these retail style events to get like currencies and stuff because I think it's just that's why I think and the comments can tell me I'm wrong. Classic players don't like that in their game, and maybe we should just accept that because maybe it won't grow the game. Maybe we're turning down people who will play our game. We have to sacrifice some things for it, but I mean, I think you can do things. I think people will want things if they feel like they put in time and effort to get it, and it wasn't just given to them. At the same time, though, does that allow your audience to grow past us 30-plus-year-olds who play Classic WoW? Because we have to understand that if we want our game to be more successful, we have to open it up to younger generations and let our game grow and be popular because that gives us money, and more money means more resources, which makes the game better. So it's a mixed bag. I just, for me personally, I think just logging in, doing something gets you reward. I think that's not Classic, and that's not what people want to see in the game. I think you should have plenty of things to do, but it takes time. And maybe there's a system where, like, Sod had a system where you do your weekly quest, and that's pretty retail, honestly, for Charlotte Enclave. You get the Chalice fragment, and three fragments gets you a tier piece. I'm not saying it gets you gear, but maybe there's a system like that, so you do get something, but not in a day. But you did your thing for the week that helps you get something later than everybody else who's farming and farming and farming their hours doing it. If that makes sense.
No,
So in this
I agree.
hypothetical, Evan, are you essentially saying like every raid tier or every phase season has its own more effort style event, where it's this memorable one-time thing that rewards you in some capacity, but only like for if you're really fucking going for it?
I'm saying this in the sense of like, we look at retail, right? And like every season there's some really pointlessly difficult grind to do. Like, either 3K or, IO or this or that. And then you have a bunch of easy things to do, which is just playing the game. A new reputation dropped. I grinded 45 hours over the course of 2 months, or 60 hours or 100 hours, and I got my reputation maxed and I unlocked a new mount. And there's, and it's got different styles of like endgame grind. The super sweaty, difficult, like Kaveza, right, for the feeder strength, where you got to actually be good at the game to do Kaveza solo, or like 3K, where you got to dedicate time to do it. And then versus, for example, like I said, the reputations. And I think in Classic Plus, I think every season, every new raid tier, right? I'm not talking about like Blackwing Lair or whatever, like not every single, but I'm saying every time we unlock a brand new zone or a new location, that's like a big new thing. There should be a AQ event style thing where a difficult grind for a new mount, new cosmetics, toys, pets, whatever. But then there should also be like an easier thing there for the people that just want to participate. You don't get something super cool, like say hypothetically, we'll use the Black Karaji war mount. You put the effort in the grind and you get the Black Karaji battle tank. Everybody else, you get the red horse, or you get, the
tabard.
Or you get a tabard, or like the red wolf mount. Like, it's cool, but it's not that much better than the mount you get for just getting level 60 and like, getting your epic riding. So I feel like for the casual players, there should still be something there to grind, because this is exactly tying into what Jody said, and like it's something I do want to expand upon, is the audience of Classic Plus is, are we making for the dedicated era anniversary Andes who, 100K, 150, 200,000 people? Or are we expanding it to everybody that's quit, the casuals, the hardcore players, the people that are like across the spectrum? It's a ginormous audience that spans multiple different groups. Do they not deserve some casual content that, gives them a reward it's not really much of a reward, but it feels like they got something, right? Because like, let's be real.
Yeah.
Would you give a shit if somebody had the red horse or the red wolf, which is just a slightly like shinier basic mount?
Yeah. So I think it's like, and I can get behind that idea, where it's like you're rewarding your players something inconsequential but meaningful, if that makes sense, right? Where it's like, if you didn't get it, it's not a big deal, but if you did get it, it has meaning to it. Like, you got the cool mount instead of just like the mount that everyone got.
Right.
I think that's a fair system, because you kind of get a few benefits out of it, right? You get kind of marketing material in the sense of this in-game event that you can advertise and make content around, and have some form of virality around. You incentivize players for participating in the game, regardless of kind of like full neckbearding it, or just kind of participating in getting the tabard and the maybe it's a 60% mount and the try hard one is 100%, right? So it's like, so yeah, I think it kind of complements, Jordy, your thought process too, where it's like you're not necessarily getting handed something. There is work to get the more meaningful thing, but it's fairly inconsequential if you don't get it. It's like if a new player comes in and looks back, they're not going to go like, "Oh fuck, I can't play this game because I didn't get that thing," right? It's just like a
That's just saying. So like just like like the what's it called? The facts. What do they call factions now in retail?
There's still factions.
Renown,
Renown,
right?
yeah.
Renown level. Yeah. So maybe something like that, where like, hey, I got my renown, but it's like our faction. I got to exalted with like Winter Spring, right? To get the mount or whatever. Maybe there's something like that where it's like there's not just I don't know how you like just kill certain mobs, right? Maybe there's something else that makes it a little more like, okay, I did my daily checklist to get my winter spring rep up.
Mhm.
So now I can log off and I got this thing done that day. So I think stuff like that's fine. You also maybe this is another topic too. Right? Maybe do you want so many variety of mounts running in classic?
Say that again.
Do you want like a huge variety of mounts in classic?
So like I said, it's like I don't think they should be adding a shit ton of brand new models fast, but like recolors of the basic shit. So for example,
I see what you're saying.
so like like if you was being super sweaty and grinding, right, your guild goes ham for it. The one guy gets the let's say for Grimbotal, they get the great furbolg bear. It's just this ginormous bear that one person gets, and then you as the guild that helped him do his whole grind, you guys get like a cloak, like a nice cloak thing with like like a shoulder, like a nice fur shoulder that looks cool. And then everybody else for not putting in the 1,000 hours over 2 months because it's a degenerate grind like the AQ40 war effort. Everyone else is like, oh, what did you, I was there, that was really cool. I didn't have the time, work and my 17 kids and my 13 wives and my 9 jobs. I grinded 2 hours a day, and after 3 months I got myself the red wolf, and it's just like the basic wolf model for the horde. For like every race gets the same thing. So the alliance gets the red horse, and the horde gets the red wolf, and that's it. That's the ultimate goal for them. That's the ultimate reward. So even if you didn't come and play, you're not sitting there like, holy shit, that's super cool. You're like, oh yeah, I don't really care. That's whatever.
So I see what you're saying, because Assad had something like that too with the Blood Moon event. If you really, really grinded it, you can get the Raptor mount, the Tiger mount. So stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not super against that, because like you don't get it instantly, but you achieve something that day. Like I'm closer to my goal because I logged in today. Yeah, I'm a fan of stuff like that. Like it's hard because I mean I'm the same way too. I'm impatient. Instant gratifications, it's hard, right? Like it's like I want my shit now, dude. Like what? Like so. And retail solves that by like, hey, I have like the lower item level version of this, so I got something, So yeah, it's hard to fight that, and totally new topic. Do you even bother fighting that, or do you just give in? But
it's like I said, it's like, are we making a game for the most try hard, sweaty? Like this is my classic. I waited so long for this. I played every re-release and re-roll event. I was there for Arcanite Reaper and White Mane and Anniversary, and I went back to Era. And like, are you making this for the hardcore classic crowd who want no extra power, no extra anything? They just want to grind the same game, but like, new grind, but the exact same way? Or do you make it for this huge wide net of people in the sense of, we're just making more vanilla, more classic, not for one group of people, for everybody? And it's a thing of, like you said, do you fight it? Is it worth fighting? And is every group worth making content for? To put in the perspective, let's discuss the casual players. Are the casual players even worth making content for? Should we make content for the casual players? Are they people you want to incentivize to make content for? Or do you want to make it for the sweaty players? Like, who... Like, of course everybody's going to say, well, duh, you make it for everybody. But who should the game be designed around?
Well, isn't there a saying, like, a game for everyone's a game for no one? Something like that? Like
it is, yes.
I mean, I'm going to use a different reference here. It's like, I made this reference a lot. I love Soulsborne games, and I love Elden Ring. It's not an easy game. It can be if you work your way around it, but like, not everyone likes Elden Ring. But people who love Elden Ring fucking love Elden Ring. Like, they are addicted. Like I was. I have like over 300 hours on that game. I've beaten it 6 times. You have your fan base. Do you grow from that fan base, or do you try to expand to different audiences? So maybe Classic Plus doesn't appeal to casual players in aspects of, you can get a cool reward just by logging in, but it can appeal to casual players by like fixing the economy, right? Like, I hated that Mongoose is finally dropped, right, because of the TPC pre-patch announcement. But a Mongoose on Night Slayer peaked at 32 gold for 1. which is insane. You can't play with all your consumes as a casual player when as a warrior or hunter when one mongoose is 32 gold, right? Like especially as a warrior when consumes and world buffs make you not rage starved. It's insane. Like it's stuff like that. SOD fixed that by adding the proc system in, where if you're an alchemist, you were still making good money, but because of the procs and because of how you could farm multiple herbs, it made everything cheaper for players. And we did have some dailies, like the Black Rock dailies, that help people get gold. I think that's a huge W for SOD in that aspect that I would not mind seeing put into Classic Plus. But there's way to appeal to more casual players that isn't give them a reward, but doesn't make it impossible to play. Because like, for Anniversary, if you want to play at a high level and you can only raid log, well, better hope you don't get your account banned for buying gold, because you're gonna have to. Like there's just no way. Like when I was working, I couldn't do it. Like I tried. I'm like, I just can't do this, man. I can't play mop. I can't play I can't do my job as a teacher, and do my other stuff with my friends and family, and then also farm gold on Anniversary properly. I just can't do that.
It's the casuals
So
like Jody with the 7 wives and 10 jobs that ruin Classic. Wow.
yeah,
Well,
I go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think you can design this may be a lame answer, but you can design the game for both casual and hardcore.
Mhm.
Because I think the thing that motivates casual players are hardcore players. So like, hear me out with this. Like the casual player in Stormwind, seeing the sweaty player with all the bells and whistles, it's like, I want to be that. Like, what do I got to do to be
Yeah.
that? Right. And the thing stopping that casual player in this example is like expensive consumables, right? So it's like mitigating the small things that are disabling that player, because eventually that casual player with enough gameplay will kind of get there, right? They'll eventually do the
Yeah.
raid. But
You hope
if the
so.
thing stopping them is grinding shit tons of gold to get the consumables, then that's the issue, right? So it's like, by appealing to hardcore players, you can still appeal to, casual players, because
Yeah.
and that's why they play the game, is because they eventually want to get there. The hardcore players just get there faster, right? So it's like they're
Yeah.
motivating the casual players. So it's finding those little holes that kind of disable the casual players from getting there, or at least like the walls, right? Where
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's kind of like a key takeaway.
That I agree with what you're saying there. Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. It's fixing the systems that kind of gatekeeps casual players from playing at a higher level versus just like I think we're looking at it at a different perspective. Like, do casual players want to get more little in-game rewards, or do casual players just want to play the game, right? Like that's a big difference. Like as somebody who was a hardcore sweaty player um, back in 2019, when I was teaching one class a day and then playing WoW for 8 hours, well, it was more than 8 hours actually, every day because of COVID. I was when I was at work after teaching my first period class, I was just farming firewater all day. So I had just a cartel's level of firewater that I would sell to my guild for a discount, or sell to the auction house for normal price, or use for myself. That's how I paid for all my consumes. And Mongoose was only 8 gold and not 32. Um, but people who like the gameplay of the raids in Anniversary, who can't do them because they can't farm those consumes, and consumes and world buffs make a big difference on your damage in Classic. So it's not like, oh, you can just do it without the world buffs, like, or and the consumes like, well, I can, but it's a difference. It's a noticeable difference. It gatekeeps you in bad ways. I don't think gatekeeping is bad in every single way, shape, or form, but I think gatekeeping in that I just can't have to spend way more time of my life just to get the consumables for raid is not healthy. Gatekeeping in that, like, I did this really challenging thing that you can't just walk in and do. That maybe that's not gatekeeping, but that I think that's fine, right? Like I got my fire cape, or I got that mythical pickaxe we keep referencing back to. Like that's a challenging achievement that you did that takes skill and effort. Sure, that's fine. you can't afford consumes because you can't play for more than 2 hours a day, well, that's not fine.
Yeah, and I think that's like what you're talking about. Yeah, it's a goal to work towards that
Yeah.
anyone could do given enough time, right? The casual player just has less time
Yeah.
to kind of plug away at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I
Because
agree.
there's a misconception on the word casual, because casual doesn't mean bad. Bad players are bad. Toxic players are toxic. Casual players just play the game casually. There are really good casual players. Like they know how to play the game. They just don't have the time to grind it. They're
That
not
is
bad.
true.
They just don't play it. Yeah.
There are
So
really
people
bad Sway
mix these
players.
two. Yeah, people mix. There's those wannabe Alondos, right, that are really bad at the game, and then there are people who are really good at the game. They just can't put the time and effort into it. So there's a difference, and I think people have to remember that casual just doesn't mean bad. I do have a whole other thing that I was talking to someone from. Well, they were B Tribe, I think, in Sod, but I think they're Beef Bar as their guild. And we were talking about this controversial kind of retraining the classic player base, because when you talk about progression in raids, people like turn away from in classic. I like classic progression. I loved Scarlet Enclave. Like that was one of the coolest things for me was experiencing progression in a classic setting. I think people who don't like that don't realize how unhealthy it is for the longevity of like a classic plus game, because if a raid's really easy and you clear it week 1, well, that's the only raid you're getting for like 6 months. So that's a big part of the game. So if you clear that day 1,
That's actually an interesting point, because back in Vanilla, when Vanilla first dropped, it took 5 months to clear Molten Core.
Yep.
It took, I think, 3 months to clear Blackwing there. And then 2% of the player base cleared Nax, because, it got progressively hard on people's internet and whatever. And the big part of classic, Vanilla Molten Core's longevity was the quest line and discovering and finding it. What do you guys think about going back to the spirit of Vanilla, where it takes like a month to unlock the raid, because everybody has to go out, do these open world activities. You got to slay the lieutenants. You got to do these quest lines. People have to contribute this much, resources to unlock the raid. So every new raid tier is a war effort.
Yeah. So like the war effort in Anniversary and like in Sod opened like in a day, right? Because we know we can look online to see what it was. Yeah. So stuff like that's cool, and I'm all for it, because people don't understand like I was talking about earlier, classic versus vanilla. Classic is expanding and improving your knowledge in a game that's already solved, and learning new tech and learning new stuff like that. Like I think in the Burning Crusade, we're going to see a lot of new tech, because it is only our 3rd iteration, but it's like our 5th version of vanilla, and the most popular private servers are vanilla private servers. There are TBC private servers, but not nearly as much as vanilla, right? So we have way more experience with this game. Whereas TBC, yes, it's the 3rd time we're doing it, but we don't. I bet you there's going to be new tech and new theories and new BIS lists that differ from what we saw in 2021 TBC Classic. So I think, go back to what I was saying though, Classic versus vanilla, you want to recreate that vanilla feeling, and the vanilla feeling is just doing it for the first time. And that's why I think, stuff like what you said with attunements and like world attunements, right? Kind of like Al Queldanos for Somewhat Plateau, you have to contribute to get the portal to actually open, is healthy for the game. It gets people involved. But back to what I was saying, I think the raids need to have some level of challenge. Now, think back to Old War, right? Old War was really hard when it was retail. It's still kind of hard as classic, but we know what to do. A lot of the challenge comes from the mystery of we don't know what the mechanics are. I think it was Noda in Nomergon took an hour to kill Thermoplug in Nomergon, the 10-man Sod version, because they didn't know they could kick the poison. And my guild had the same thing. We didn't know you could cleanse the poison, so we were getting like 4 or 5 stacks of the poison. Then one time I accidentally hit the spell on my paladin, and I was like, "You can dispel this shit?" And then we killed it in the next pull. And we were up at like 2 in the morning. Like I was like, we're gonna kill this boss tonight. We're not logging out. And somehow the other 9 members of my team were with me, and we did it. But that's a level of challenge that we have, because we just don't know the mechanics. And over time we perfect the strategies, right? So if you take like an Ulduar style of difficulty and put that into a new rated classic, it might seem really hard. But when you look back on it, once Foji gives you the answers, or DBM or Big Wig gives you the answers on how to do it, and there's a strategy guide for it on YouTube, it becomes a lot less hard. If that makes sense.
No, it does. So do you think the classic plus player base actually wants hard raids? Because we saw Scarlet Enclave, we saw Phase 3 with Sunken Temple. It was like, there's too difficult. And then there is not understanding the mechanics. Nobody complained about Noma. We just didn't understand the mechanics. But the Scarlet Enclave and, all that stuff. So, like, do you think hard raids is actually good? Because Ulduar saw a ginormous drop-off compared to Nax in Wrath of Lich King.
Yeah. Ulduar saw a drop-off way, not as soon as people think they did, by the way. It wasn't just like a week. It was like a month and a half or 2 months into it, which is a healthy amount of prog. But I do understand that. Aranicus was too hard. We know it was too hard.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to cheese it by doing the jump wall strat to get Aranicus to go up and down, that's not intended, right? That was too hard. Scarlet Enclave was too hard. Beatrix, the second boss, should not be a gatekeep boss. But also, who was it? Someone I trust, who's very good at the game, told me that Reborn Council, unnerfed, was harder than Algalon, like significantly harder than Algalon.
I believe that.
And that, yes, I'm like, okay, because it was such a tight DPS check. And I believe in too. I'm like, if you say it, I believe what you're saying, dude. And that should not be the case. Algalon's challenging. It's challenging, and like you also need to bring like niche classes to, like you need a Shadow Priest for the invulnerability, or a Prop Paladin who procs Art of Defender for when everyone goes down in the Shadow Realm, whatever it's called. But I think a hard mode like Freya, people can overcome. A hard mode like Thorum, people can overcome. And don't make every boss hard, right? Like, you know how in retail, the first boss in Mythic, almost anybody can clear it. If you can have like 3 or 4 carries in the first boss of a Mythic raid team. After it's clear, right? After the Race of World First is over and it gets some nerfs, Mythic's still hard, but you can clear it. The first boss is usually like you're welcome, right? So there's jumps that could be in there. I just think people need to open up to the idea of progression, especially if this is going to be a forever game. I think you're going to get bored really fast and you're just going to log out and wait till next raid. Even if there's stuff to do outside of raid, because if you're someone who loves raiding, it gets pretty repetitive pretty fast when you're clearing the game on like your 4 alts, because your team cleared it the first 2 weeks. There's a whole argument on should we have normal and heroic raids. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I think there's a appropriate level of challenge, because people thought Razor Gore was hard in 2004, right? It's not. People thought, yeah, people thought these fights were really hard, and I'm like, they aren't. And people think that Ulduar is still really hard. Me personally, I don't think it's that bad. I think there's a certain level of challenge that players need to be more welcome to, I guess. And the guy I was talking to from B Tribe, he's a little more blunt about it. His phrasing was, Blizzard needs to retrain the classic player base to be better at the game. That sounds mean, but I think it should feel really rewarding. Like when we killed Mason the Echo and Sod, oh my god, that was awesome. That was so cool. That felt so cool for me and my raid team. And we had like 27 people. We didn't do 20 man. It was still hard for us with 27 people. When we killed Reborn Council for the first time, amazing feeling. It's such a cool feeling when you see the boss getting lower and lower in percentage. Now, I don't want it to be retail where it's like, oh, okay, guys, last pull was 44%. This pull was 43.7%. We got it a whole 0.3% down. I don't want that, but I want it to where it's like, once the whole team understands it, you're getting it. And maybe avoid the RNG mechanics, like, oh, please, God, please don't give the fire. please don't let the fire circle on Calderon get on Billy because Billy just can't for the life figure out where to put the fire circle. Maybe it's mechanics can be controlled by certain players because I think that's a huge thing too. Like if it's still challenging, but the hardest mechanics you could pick who gets them by positioning the boss, like on Silistrasa, the person who got the fire circle was the person closest to the boss. I even said this in my video guide about it. Tanks always eat it because you're the smartest person in your raid team. That way your melee DPS don't mess it up. Stuff like mechanics like that still has a certain level of challenge, but you can bring your friend who you love so much, but eats every single mechanic. You know, like you still bring you still bring Joey to the raid, even though Joey might be blind in one eye and you swear his monitors off. You can still clear the raid because Joey doesn't get the mechanic.
Joey dropped
So
out
I think
of
there's
3K.
yeah, there's a level of difficulty I think the player base should welcome with raids, as well as solo content I mentioned earlier, that just makes it more rewarding when you clear that content the first time. And then you look back on it like 3 weeks later, man, this is the easiest shit in the world. How are we struggling on this, you know?
Well, what about you, Aaron? What do you think about all this?
No, I think it's true. Like, I think the appeal of Classic WoW to a lot of people is it's not necessarily a hard game, right? Like, I don't think any of the content is very hard. But like you were saying, right? You want things to feel fresh and new, that you're progressing and learning through things, but not to the point where Blizzard has to nerf these raids because they're just way too hard, right? I think that's what we saw. It just kills morale, and it makes people not really want to participate. But once solved, it's still challenging because you have to execute all the right dance moves, but you can still achieve it, right? And keep in mind, this is we're talking about end game, right? So it should be by the time you've gotten to this point, you've learned quite a bit about the game. You know how to play your class. You understand basic mechanics. So it shouldn't be a give me by any chance, because that's where the best gear is locked behind. But it's striking that balance between difficulty and figuring it out, because you want to provide that satisfying reward of finally doing it. Just want to give that to the player. I think that's like the big appeal of like those Dark Souls type style games, why they're so popular, right? Is because it seems really hard, but you can do it, right? And when you do it, it's like, oh my god, like it feels that much more rewarding. So it's striking that balance, because if you wanted to play a really hard MMO, like a really difficult game, you just play like retail at the highest degree, right? So it's like you're playing classic for a certain style of difficulty, but at the same time, it's a fine balance. It's a juggling act when it comes to determining the difficulty and time of progression, right? Because it's exciting too for people to watch both, watch content and participate in, because a lot of people will just watch a high-end guild stream their progression through the raid on the first night, right? And I don't think that guild should necessarily be able to just wipe the floor and clear it right away, because one, that's not satisfying. It's not fun to watch, and I don't think anyone really cares to participate in something like that. But it's delivering that rewarding experience. That's kind of like, in general, the ethos of classic WoW, right? Is that that reward, that feeling of accomplishment, and not just being handed something, right? So it's kind of in line with just like the core fundamental vibe of the game, right?
Yeah, and I'll give a personal anecdote on this too. So, in Miss Pandaria, my guild team, we ran a 10-man, which is a mistake. We should have evolved to 25-man, because 25-man is a lot less forgiving than 10-man. But in Mogushan Volts, one of the easier bosses, Garajal the Spirit Binder, we progged for like 2 hours on, because I was told an inferior strat to do. Now, I'll take the blame as the raid leader for not looking at myself, but it's also a good fight to reference, because you also pick who does the mechanics. Because there's a mechanic where you have to go to the spirit world, and you get to the spirit world by killing a totem, and the players who are inside the totem get set down there. So you control who goes down there. But when you're down there, there's a bunch of these masks that are shooting shadow bolts up to you in the living world, but you can't see them, only in the spirit world. So we were doing a strat where we thought we were doing the right strat by ignoring them, getting sent up fast as possible, and burn the boss down. And then I looked up the number one guild and what they did, and they killed all the masks before they went back up. So after 2 hours of trying it the really hard way, we did it the right way, killed all the masks, went back up, and we one-shot it. And we progged, but we did it the wrong way. So it might have seemed hard until we realized we were just doing a really stupid strat.
Mm.
And that's it's stuff like that. I think Gyarados the Spirit Binder is actually a perfect fight that can be put into like Classic Plus because it's a fight that's kind of challenging, but you pick who does the mechanics. You might prog on it, but you feel really rewarding when you kill it. 'Cause it's fun.
Mm.
It's interactive. Mechanics that are interactive are fun. I don't like standing around and playing fighting a target dummy. I hate that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you bring up an important point too. Once like something is figured out, it's figured out. People know how to do it, right? So, it's that figuring out. How long does that figuring out phase take?
Yeah.
Is it too hard to figure out? Genuinely do that to nerf the boss or what? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of buying yourself enough time where the figuring out phase takes X amount of time, and then once everyone knows how to do it, everyone knows how to do it, and then it's just kind of like a skill check at that point.
Yeah.
So
So like just based off of that, we're gonna jump onto like the last topic of the day, and that is, we discussed the difficulty and all that stuff. At the end of the day, when it comes to horizontal versus vertical progression, how do you tie difficulty into a system that lasts? Do you just keep making, because this is the retail issue, where they kept making raids harder and harder because add-ons made the game easier and easier, and they added all these features and quality of life, and they buffed every class, and the gear got stronger, so they had to make the raids harder to compensate. How do you make gearing not be the crutch to like raid design and vice versa? Because that's a vertical issue, whereas in horizontal games, for example, Old School RuneScape or Guild Wars 2, you don't ever get stronger. So they just changed they add brand new mechanics with the exact same strength. You just got to figure out new mechanics to clear the content. So how do you give people power without making that the crutch?
So in your first topic on making the raids, seem more difficult, I guess. I think this was introduced in Kata or Mop, where the game told you the mechanic when it went out. Even if you didn't have DBM, you didn't have big wigs, the game told you what to do. It's like, hey, he's casting this. Try doing this, right? The Ubisoft way of every game, pretty much. But in Classic, there's no in-game warning, minus maybe Onyxia's taking a big breath and like your chat box. That's about it, right? So that's what made like Mexioneer Thermoplug and Sod Nomergon, the 10-man raid, seem difficult because nothing told you what the mechanics were. We didn't know we could kick poison, right? So it's that mystery of the game is not telling you what to do. You have to learn what to do. That'll make any new content seem challenging at first. Like, but what has to matter is the mechanic. A mechanic can look cool, but if it doesn't punish you for failing it, then there's no point. Like the fire tornado on Reborn Council didn't kill you. If you had full health, it hit you. All right, get healed back up. Lillian Voss, when she got nerfed, the giant force circles that sucked you in and you had to spread out, it didn't really do much damage if it hit you. It was kind of scary if it hit your tank. But if you had this giant circle on you, it was this really cool big effect when it went off. But you look at people's health bar, it's like, that was it. Like, okay, they lost 10% of their health. This mechanic doesn't matter. So mechanics can look cool and extravagant, but if they don't punish you, then it doesn't matter. You're just going to have the classic issue where you just out DPS the mechanics, you just ignore them. And if your group's good enough, sure, that's fine. If you're like a top 0.001% team where you can just out DPS or out heal the mechanic, sure, more power to you. But if that's just what everyone does, then that's really boring. So, and making the game challenging, don't add the system that we have now where the in-game UI tells you what mechanic is happening, how to dodge it. Don't give us the dungeon journal. Don't give us the raid journal. Let us figure it out on our own. Or give us a dungeon journal. Let it be blank, and then we can write it out ourselves and share it with other people. That'd be cool, right? We create our own dungeon journal so we can share with others. But don't give us the answers. Let us find the answer. That's the beauty of classic progression versus retail progression, is that You have a dungeon journal, you have a raid journal, all the mechanics are explained to you. You figure out the best way to do it. Whereas classic is you don't know anything, or sorry, vanilla is you don't know anything. You learn by trial and error. Oh shoot, you just cast this giant fireball that killed us. Well, I guess we had to avoid that. Hey, there's a swirly on the ground, like Beatrix, for example. There's a giant meteor coming down on the floor. It's coming down slowly, though. Does that mean we have a lot of time to dodge it? Or do we soak it? Well, guess what? The answer is the latter. You have to soak it or you die. So it's stuff like learning by trial and error what the mechanics are that creates that sense of challenge versus is just being like Demencius, where there's shit everywhere. Like when I got Mythic Sylvanas, there's just shit everywhere, and it's like, when do I get to hit the boss? That's retail difficulty versus classic, and classic can still be hard that version, the way I'm talking about it, but it's going to become easy once DBM updates, Big Wigs updates, Foji gives you the answers, assuming we have weak auras even in Classic Plus. So that's that version of challenge. And what was the part 2 of your question?
The part 2 was, how do you stop the retail effect from happening? Because retail was a slow burn. It wasn't like you went from vanilla all the way to it didn't suddenly just become like overnight whoop. We went from Molten Core to Demencius. It was a slow burn. Each new phase, each new expansion took a couple of tiers, yada yada, and then eventually we get to where we are. How do we stop that from happening to Classic Plus 5-10 years from now? Tier 11, tier 14, tier 9, whatever.
I think it all goes down to just like not putting in that UI that tells you what the mechanic is, because everything's easy, and then you have to make it harder. It's the challenge is not knowing the mechanic.
But like,
that's the challenge.
But so you get all this new gear, all this new stuff. They have to keep buffing and balancing classes, new legendaries, new item sets, tier sets, bonuses, all this extra gear that comes in. So you have all this extra stuff. You can't have like bosses only be incrementally stronger, right? Hypothetically speaking, by the time you get to Nax, if the boss after Kaltazard was only 15% stronger than Kaltazard, your Nax gear would annihilate it. If you're full bis Nax, you would be destroying it. So it would have to be 50% harder. And then the boss would have to keep getting harder and harder, and it becomes this issue of gatekeeping. People start not being able to clear content, start falling behind. People start no longer raiding. Because retail, I think it was Holly Longdale that said it, over 3/4 or 2/3 of the player base do not raid at all. They do story mode or no raid whatsoever. So it gatekeeps the player base to a heavy degree. And Classic Plus will eventually have that same issue, because again, you can't do full horizontal, because at that point, like, you have 2, 3, 5 person raid bosses in the challenge in old school RuneScape, or you have Guild Wars 2 where there's no player power at all. You're the exact same for 10 fucking years in the new mechanics. If we're gonna keep getting stronger, the bosses are gonna keep getting stronger. At a certain point, people will not be able to clear it or will not be able to catch up. So they have to do a level squish, a stat squish, or whatever. So, assuming they never do that, how do you keep a casual player from being able to actually stay relevant 10 tiers in and not have the raid just be effectively impossible without now getting the issue of you got mythic, heroic, story mode, casual, normal, whatever?
Yeah.
You see the issue I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I think is often misconceptualized, I guess is the word, is the idea of difficulty just being through more HP and the boss does more damage. That's not really harder, it's just longer. Like, I think Shaw of Fear is a great example of that, because that fight is, I hate that fight, and I do it every week. I do it twice a week, actually. It's not hard. Well, it's kind of hard, but it's also hard in that it's just so long, you want to turn off your brain, and you mess up one mechanic that everyone dies. The fight's missing something. It's such a long fight for no reason. It's missing one mechanic that would make it more interesting. That fight's just long because the boss has more HP and does more damage. Yeah, you will need to increase HP and damage taken as each tier arrives, but you also want to prevent that as much as possible by minimalizing the power creep. Like, we had Sod, which is like, screw that, we're gonna do 14,000 DPS after Nax Ramus, which is like, okay, that's why. So you get stuff like that, then yeah, you're gonna have to add in like catch up gear because people will feel so far behind that they're not gonna want to do it. But if you keep that power creep really that power level, very minimal, um, you have a problem you won't have to deal with for a long time. And then I guess the answer is they'll figure it out when they get there. So I think that's something I think about. The devs, I don't think the devs should know the answer to that right now. As they should not know that answer, and they should look at that later. Um, they should know not to have the sod power creep be in there because if you look, what did I say? It's like a 200, almost 300 DPS difference from Warrior Phase 1 BIS to Warrior Phase to Nax BIS. Endgame BIS is 300 DPS. And between, I think, AQ and, well, I don't have to think, I gotta look it up. Put my tab out here. Between Nax BIS, which not everyone's gonna be Nax BIS, by the way, to AQ BIS is a 93 DPS. It's a big jump. But you have to remember, that's one tier, right? Maybe the next tier is only a 50 DPS increase for the Warriors, right? That's 5 phases of BIS of being full BIS is 300 DPS difference. And remember, phase 4 is just ZG. So phase 3, which is a Warrior does 16 to 18 at full BIS to add in ZG, you only get about a 14 DPS increase. And that's if I go from full phase 4 BIS to on which was phase 4.
So I get what you're saying, but you're effectively saying just give a power increase, but make it like 5-10%. And by the time we get there, it won't matter anyways, because that's a problem for the future devs.
Sorry. So phase 2 is world bosses and what's it called? And honor. That's where I was wrong there. But yeah, it's just like the power creep isn't that big, and you could have the next phase just be a catch-up phase 2, right? What if like after, let's say they do Scarlet Enclave again, but much reduced, and then they have another raid after that, maybe the Timbermaw hold, right? Maybe after Timbermaw hold, it's just they add in like a ZG-ish thing. They add in ZA, right? Zolamon. That's just a little more catch-up gear that equivalates to maybe Nax Ramus-ish, maybe AQ40-ish, right? And I mean, think about it. We didn't get Zolamon. Zolamon is before Sunwell Plateau. Like, so there's no catch-up raid until before the final tier. So you don't have to have these catch-up raids so often.
I got you.
But I think it's as long as you keep the power creep really minimal, but still meaningful, because 50 DPS is a lot in Anniversary, and granted, this is with full world buffs, by the way. So took away world buffs, it's a lot smaller. You don't have to worry about that problem until later. But also remember that people are only not full BIS because it's 40-man raids. So that's a whole topic, right? Do you have 40-man raiding in Classic Plus? I don't think so. Me personally, I don't want to lead a 40-man guild ever in my life.
The way to go, but that's a whole different topic for a whole different.
I mean, what freaked me out. I did not when I wrote the Wowhead article about what's the best raid size for Classic. I did not expect Flex to be the most popular answer from the community. I was like, really? That really shocked me. It was Flex.
It's a pain in the ass. Yeah. Like the thing is,
it was Flex at 25 man, the two most popular ones.
I just think Flex is better. I think Flex from the get-go is the better option. But Aaron, you look like you've got some thoughts over there. You've been waiting your turn. What's up?
I've been absorbing everything Jordy has been saying. No, I think he covered a lot of it. And I just quickly touch on Flex. I think Flex, I agree with the Flex rating being the way to go because it appeals to both audiences, kind of like what we were talking about before, right? Where a more casual group can take more players and still do the content, while a more hardcore group can go for the minimum size and still clear it. And that's my opinion. But no, I think there's a lot of power in what Jerry was talking about with the catch-up mechanics, right? In catch-up raids, where one, it provides new raid tiers and new experiences, and gives people a means of not having to worry about like getting lost and caught behind, where they can catch things up. You see that a little bit in Classic already, where by the time the future raid phases are out, I think a new player, it's pretty daunting if they wanted to do Nax, that they had to do all the molten core stuff, get all their gear so they can progress, kind of like a domino effect, and giving them the opportunity to kind of do these smaller size, more casual, pluggable raids, to get that gear is really important. What I was going to say too is I'm really interested to see what happens in retail with this new kind of add-on apocalypse, I think they're calling it, where I'm a very like anti add-on, but like I don't like the add-ons that tell you what to do, when to do it, essentially kind of like playing the game for you. So in my opinion, I think like I'd be interested to see that concept brought to a Classic Plus, where um and that kind of falls in line with the ethos of like Vanilla Plus, where you're learning everything again, and you're not, eventually having this add-on tell you what to do, because it'll get to a point where once the add-on's updated, the learning is gone and the discovery is gone. So even for those new players who take a while to get there, they can just download the add-on, and that the learning and the experience is only really happening from the first wave of people who do it, until the add-ons are updated. Now, granted, you can always look up a guide of how other people did it, but I think we're kind of entering this really interesting time with retail, and I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned from kind of what they're going through, right? Because I think they're trying to mitigate kind of the same idea, right, where they're scaling back the classes, they're kind of scaling back, add-on usage, all these things. So, it's going to be really interesting to see when Midnight releases how that kind of affects the game, and I'm sure they're going to be taking notes and learning from what happens there, and how they can apply that to a Classic Plus, because they're in the situation now that we're talking about being a potential for Classic Plus, right? They're 20 years deep with, they've stat squished and level squished and added stuff and taken things away. But now I think it's interesting with the add-on thing, especially because that's been such a crutch that people have I know, I'm sure there's a lot of people who, if you had all their add-ons taken away, they couldn't do the raids, which is kind of like, in my opinion, like really, that's kind of shitty, right? Like you're playing a game that requires this third party thing to enable you to be able to do the thing, right? Like, I don't think, at least my perspective is like, this MMORPG, it's kind of this immersive fantasy world where you're accomplishing these goals and doing this content. To have a third party thing tell you what to do and experience, and how to experience the game, just seems kind of um, opposite to what I think the vanilla mindset, is, or that sense of discovery and new things in the game. So, yeah, I think Jordy covered quite a bit of my thoughts, but I just wanted to add that little bit of what's happening with retail and how we can kind of like look at that, learn things from it. The dev team's going to probably do the same, and it'll be really interesting to see the outcome of this scaled back add-on system, and curious to see how the learning happens there, right? Because they're all going to have to learn the raids, and they're not going to have these add-ons to assist them. And so, yeah, it's interesting times coming up, and I think we can kind of get a glimpse of what we're discussing now, in real time with retail right now. How about you, Evan?
Well,
Oh, go
yeah.
ahead, Jody. No, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I think an issue with the add-on stuff though is that what they're going to get instead is the built-in Blizzard version. So there's going to be something telling them what to do in the game, which is what I don't want in Classic, because that ruins like the spirit of like during the fights. 'Cause that's the replacement, right? It's not like there's nothing telling you what to do on your screen.
Yeah,
It's just Blizzard telling you, like DBM and big. It's like I've seen the DBM, the Blizzard boss mods, I guess BBM, I guess. It's tells you what to do the moment you enter that dungeon or that raid. I would hate that in Classic, because now you're telling me everything. I don't want built-in questy in Classic.
No.
So it tells you
it's the one button rotation, right?
So I don't mind add-ons in Classic because it's a choice.
Yeah.
I can choose to put the add-on in the game. If I want to, like when I played a certain version of WoW I can't talk about, I didn't get add-ons. I wanted to play. I wanted to play blind, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the feeling you want to play because there
For
was new
sure.
stuff. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I don't know where the hell I'm going. Now,
Yeah.
granted, the quest descriptions were not good enough, in my opinion, to tell you where to go. I just wanted to play and play blind. I have
Yeah.
that choice. If you go to like I think Wrath added in or Cata, where they added in the in-game
Mhm.
quest finder, I don't want to open my map and the map spoils where the quest is at.
For sure.
It's
Yeah, and
the
I
beauty of SOD, right? You know, like when we got our new runes and stuff, we got to figure it all out by reading and using
yeah.
general chat, which is what that's what Agron specifically said in his in the panel on SODA at BlizzCon was we want people to find this by talking to other people. So if you ask for Blizzard built-in add-ons,
Mhm.
um, or if that's the only option is Blizzard built-in add-ons, then it's going to be in there day one versus Questy has to update it once people tell Questy.
Yeah.
So eventually it gets ruined, but the first time playthrough is what matters. So you get people who play Classic Plus the first time, or the zones that are out there for the first time, will not have help because nobody knows.
Yeah.
Whereas
And
with
I guess
I don't, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
well, with retail, I didn't know that they were doing that, you know,
Yeah,
essentially telling you to. So I guess my thought process is like I'm against the idea of the game or a third party thing. I want the player to play the game, not have the game,
yeah,
assist you in that sense, right? So I completely agree. Yeah, I don't think that um, should be implemented. A Blizzard assistance system should be implemented in
yeah.
Classic Plus. The dogs are great. The dogs are
I
great.
know. I'm
Um,
also I also understand why edit. I get edit mode is kind of a cool thing because like it's compatible, makes it easier for people. But
Yeah, it's
if
like
you're playing,
bartending.
if you look at the PTR right now, it's it's causing a lot of issues. I'm like, was this worth putting it in for TBC? Like
Mhm.
that's the
Yeah,
side
and I
thing
guess
for later, but whatever.
we'll
Yeah,
see. Yeah. No, and I think with the add-on thing, while yeah, it's a choice for sure, um, it eventually becomes somewhat mandatory when playing it in a group, right? Because you don't wanna
yes,
be the one guy, who's like, "Oh, Aaron's not playing with add-ons," like,
yeah.
I don't.
let's not take him, right?
I
But
don't use weak orders, DBM, big wigs. I
Yeah.
haven't since
It's
2019. I full
yeah.
cleared up
but
the
So
here, yeah,
max
but
and
here's
did it
the
all.
wait, thing. But
Mhm.
nobody will, right? And when the raid's first out, I think it's the first time playthrough that matters the most. Eventually,
For sure.
you'll have an add-on that tells you what to do, but I can do most of Ulduar without an add-on. Now, should
Mhm.
I? No, but I can do it, right? I can
Yeah.
do the old
It's
because I know the
possible.
mechanics,
Yeah.
and nobody like needs an add-on for any raid in Classic. You just need a raid leader who has it, or a raid leader who's smart enough to know the mechanics.
Yeah.
Whereas retail, you need the weak auras for sure. You need something telling you what to do because it's too much. So like I wouldn't survive at all in Sylvanas without any of the weak auras or add-ons that I had.
Yeah.
Um, so I think add-ons being a choice and always being a choice is fine for classic. If Blizzard retail is too far in its gameplay, so whatever they're doing, the dogs are so funny. Whatever they're
Yeah.
doing, I understand it to a certain
For
extent.
sure.
Um, but for classic, I think let add-ons be add-ons. It's a choice. You don't need them, but if you want
For
to
sure. Yeah.
min-max your gameplay, you can get them.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing too. Like, I don't want to
Yeah,
sound like I'm telling people how to play the game by any means. Like, at the end of the day,
yeah,
play the game however you want to play the game, and find the group of people that kind of think the same way you do. Right?
yeah,
Don't be like if you're playing with a bunch of people who want you to use add-ons and you don't want to use add-ons, you're playing with the wrong group of people, right?
yeah.
So I
Exactly.
think
Yeah,
that's also user error. So, um, yeah, yeah. I love the dogs. I'm
yeah.
so happy the dogs are making a
Yeah,
cameo.
they're just sitting there like playing with each other.
Hey,
They're
y'all have
great.
my streamer room set up?
I do. It
It's
looks
great.
really good, by the way.
Awesome. The
Love the
couch
match.
helped a lot.
I do
I
like the
think
couch.
lights
Makes
on
me
and
want to get
couch.
one
Yeah,
right behind myself as well.
yeah,
But like, I do want to say, getting on the topic of add-ons, I think add-ons are now a modern necessity, whether they're built in or like not built in. I think people want them because let's be real. In 2004, very few people had Questy. you would look at Thoughtbot or like whatever to figure out some
Yeah.
quest. But a lot of people would just actually read the quest, and they would actually read because we didn't have whatever TikTok brain rot or this stuff. People like you would just read a quest and you would figure it out, or you'd ask for help. Nowadays, when was the last time you saw somebody quest without questy? When was the last time you quested without questy? Sure, Sod's, the new quests. That was nice. Imagine you couldn't use questy at all for the entirety of Sod.
Yeah, I
Would you be
would
happy?
be able to. Me
Now,
knowing the quests, yes, to a degree.
yeah,
It
I-
require
I-
a little more thought, but
there's a difference, I think, and this is it's classic versus vanilla.
Mhm.
Classic questy is helping you get things you already know. You know where the quest is at.
Mhm.
You just need a little friendly reminder. But vanilla is like there's no way it's gonna be built in because nobody knows. I don't want a built-in questy when there's new quests in Classic Plus. I will let questy figure that out, and then on my third playthrough of Do That Zone, maybe I'll download questy. But I like the fact that you just don't know. And I think I think the devs loved that from SOD when you had to use world chat, general chat, your class discords to find stuff. That was their main goal with Season of Discovery for the first 4 phases. And I don't think they're gonna want to go away from that at the start. Questy, they're not gonna ban questy, but I think they're supportive in that first time playthrough. If you're playing with everybody at launch on Classic Plus and you see there's a new quest in Elwyn Forest, you're going to have to ask people where to go if the quest
Oh,
description
I agree
doesn't
with
tell you where to
that.
go very well.
Absolutely.
Now, and then when Questy figures it out, sure, it's your choice to download Questy. The game is not forcing you. And that's why people don't like
Yeah.
Cataclysm. It's because Cataclysm told you everything. It got rid of all the free thinking for you. Oh, don't worry. After Elwyn, you go straight to Westfall. Then you go straight to Redridge. Then you go straight to Duskwood, then Northern Stranglethorn. You do not need to go to Lochmodon. You don't need to go to Wetlands. We've made it so the leveling process is streamlined. It's linear. You don't need to discover. Oh, you want to go there? There's no breadcrumb quests. Go to the call to action board, whatever it's called. That's why people don't like Cataclysm. Even though if you look at Cataclysm on paper, it looks like Classic Plus, right?
True.
Worlds revamped, Hyjal, all these new zones on Azeroth, right? And zones got redid, quests got updated, like the Defias quest got updated, the Jitters, Sven story got updated. Like it didn't just get remodeled, it got updated from Classic. So we saw continuous story progression. It looks cool. It looks like a perfect Classic Plus on paper until you realize Cataclysm got rid of all the thinking. It just made everything easy. Just don't think. To the next quest, we'll tell you where to go. We'll tell you everything. You don't need to think. Just get to level 85.
It's an interesting like dichotomy of like that convenience and the new factor of like just adding new things and modernizing it to like super convenient. You get Cataclysm, which is no longer classic. Cataclysm was the second Classic Plus, because the first Classic Plus was TBC, which finished Classic, but in a new continent, a new world.
Yeah.
Cataclysm was Classic Plus because they went back to Vanilla and they redid Vanilla. So when you look at it from that perspective, it definitely does kind of like check out, and it's kind of interesting overall. For Classic Plus, it's like you kind of want TBC, but on Vanilla.
Mm.
On Azeroth, yeah. Bless you.
Thank you. So like overall, I do get exactly what you guys are saying, but it's like it's hard to put in perspective because the add-ons are just like I said, a small facet of it. So like it's just one of many topics we've discussed today. Which this is a long episode. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes so far. I do think like add-ons overall should not really be like a focus for the devs. When the player base eventually gets there, go ahead, add it to Questy or whatever. But like I remember, for example, in Sod, I was playing a druid initially, Tauren druid, so I was in Mulgore, and we had people baiting everybody with the wrong rune location. I found the rune 3 different times. People went to the wrong location. And then somebody was eventually, I found they were like, all right, fuck off, you're baiting us all. That's not the, like, no, this is it, I swear. And I was like, I'll go take a look. And I found that I was like, oh, holy shit, he's speaking the truth. And so,
Yeah.
like it's like that was fun. That was fun. That was interesting. I do feel like by level 60 it got kind of tiresome and cumbersome because they were doing these like massive breadcrumb quests constantly. And I think the issue is like I feel like breadcrumb quests are cool, but because almost every new quest was a breadcrumb long chain, find this, do that, it got cumbersome for a large portion of the player base. So I think for Classic Plus, they should do a long quest, but I think adding a shit ton of just regular new quests, like when you're leveling an Alwyn,
Oh yeah,
they would just
100%, yeah.
they should be like, by the way, we need you to go to the waterfall, right? You know, with Northshire, like Abbey, there's a little waterfall area that goes up, and there's nothing
Yeah.
up there. They're like, you should go up there, by the way, because turns out the bandits built like a little base up on the cliff. So you just climb the staircase up, and then boom, a whole new quest chain, like 5 new quests over there. You're like, well, holy shit. That's cool to like have no discoverable just like randomly on a whim. But that's also a whole different issue of no PTR. There should be 10, 15 fully dedicated QA testers that test everything, and we shouldn't be testing it. We should go in blind.
100%.
I mean, we did for Sod, right? We had one PTR, that was it.
Yeah,
And
for the
it
most
wasn't
part.
until phase 4 where we got phase 4 or 5
It's a
where we
black
got
rock.
PTRs because they needed help. The devs needed help
Yeah.
because they had shifted from changing the world to changing your character with tier sets. So that's what we got PTRs, but we didn't have PTRs for the first 4 phases. First 3 phases. It was figure it out, you know?
But
that was cool. I love that.
It was. But now that we've gotten like through so many topics, and just so everybody's aware, we got through 4 of the 10 questions I had prepared for horizontal versus vertical progression. But everyone has a life and things, so we're not gonna have a 10-hour podcast episode.
Yeah.
So there might be a part 2 to horizontal versus vertical later on with Jody coming back on. But do you guys have any final topics you want to discuss before we call the show for today?
Just a fun question, that's all.
Go ahead.
All right, if you guys could choose any toy to be in Classic Plus, what toy? Yeah, I guess, and why?
Okay. So this is a lot of effort. I don't think the devs will actually do this because it's just an obscene amount of effort. I want a flashback toy. So seeing Stormwind, like seeing Alwyn Forest 1,000 years ago. So it just changes the whole zone to be like, you know, look at the knolls. Then like there's no Goldshire. It's Knollwood or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah.
Hogger's great grandfather, Bogger.
Yeah.
Clogger. Like,
yeah.
You know, just
so
just like, you know, it doesn't have to be for the whole of Azeroth. Right? It could even be like a contained location. Like, you know, it could just be a toy called The Founding of Stormwind. You know, just like, you know, they can add them periodically.
Old dead
mines. Toys that already existed, or like just whatever.
Whatever you want.
I was just thinking like maybe like the Goblin Jet Rider, or like it's in retail where it turns the zone into the opposite time of day, so like it turns night to day, day to night. That way, in case like, you know, you're just playing at night, like, you know, I want to look like daytime, I'll use this toy for a little bit.
That's a good one.
Into night. Yeah. Yeah, something like that. I guess my thought process is that whatever game we're getting, you know, those devs, I feel for them because there's an insane amount of pressure on them right now, and I would not want to be them. And if you want to make the game good, I said this on my season discovery look back video. I forgot what I called it. Standard of classic, whatever. As long as you make content that y'all found fun and you want to share it with us, that's your main goal, I'm sure we'll love it.
Eloquently put, and very well put. And that concludes today's episode of the Classic Plus show. An amazing guest with Jody. Let everybody know where they can find you, all your channels and socials.
Everything is JerdyJD, twitch.tv/JerdyJD, YouTube/JerdyJD, TikTok/JerdyJD, X, Twitter, JerdyJD. I would appreciate all the follows and support as I'm making this part of my main life starting in 2026. I'm sure the video will come out after I tell my students, though. I'm taking a break from teaching for a year and a half to work from home remotely, and part of being a content creator is a part of that. So any love and support is very much appreciated. I consider myself, that's also anybody else here, one of the most reasonable and content creators when it comes to classic.
Very reasonable, because I'm not. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that much right now.
Yeah.
Aaron, let them all know where they can find you.
Aeronomir on all the things.
And that is Aaron
They-
N-I-R. No, M-I-R.
Yeah, Aaronimir. I would say like
Aaron
it's like
Amir.
Boromir, but Aaron.
Yeah.
Amazing
Yeah.
content creator. He's all about classic plus, an absolute blast. You should all check him out. And check out Jody, great content creator. Like I said, he's actually reasonable, very clean cut, very like informational and well put together videos. I recommend you guys check out both Aaron and Jody. There'll be a link to both of them in the description down below. And I am Eben Hart. Welcome to the channel and goodbye. Thank you all. See you guys in the next one. Peace.